I held a check for $5.3 million in my grease-stained hands. I rushed home an hour early to change our lives forever. But when I reached the door, I did not open it. I stood there and listened to my wife planning to drug me into a nursing home so she could sell the roof over my head. They thought I was just a senile old mechanic. They were wrong. Before I tell you how I destroyed them, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever been underestimated by the people you loved. My name is Isaiah Washington. I am 70 years old. I have lived a life of oil and steel. My hands are rough. The skin is hard and cracked from 50 years of turning wrenches. I am a black man in America who learned early that you keep your head down and you work twice as hard to get half as much. I thought I had built a good life. I thought I had a family that respected my sacrifice. I was a fool. I stood on the concrete pavement outside the First National Bank. The sun was beating down on my neck. People walked past me in their expensive suits. They looked at my stained coveralls and they looked away. They saw a laborer. They saw a nobody. They did not know that the piece of paper trembling in my fingers was worth more than their entire lives. $5.3 million. It was not a lottery win. It was not luck. It was justice. 30 years ago, I was a young mechanic at a major auto plant. I saw a flaw in the transmission assembly. I designed a fix. It was simple. It was elegant. It saved fuel and reduced wear. I showed it to my supervisors. They patted me on the back. They took my drawings. Then they fired me a month later for a minor infraction. 6 months later, my design was in every new model rolling off the line. They called me an uneducated mechanic when I tried to claim it. They said a black man with a high school diploma could not invent such a thing. They stole my mind. I spent every spare dollar for 3 decades on lawyers. I fought them. My wife Althea called me obsessed. She said I was throwing money into a pit. Today the court order was final. The settlement was paid. I had won. I folded the check carefully. I put it in the front pocket of my work shirt right next to my heart. I did not deposit it. Not yet. I wanted Althea to see it first. I wanted to see her eyes light up. Althea is 65. She is a beautiful woman, but she is hard. She has always wanted more than I could give. She looks at the neighbors with their new cars and she sighs. She looks at her friends with their cruises and she frowns at me. I worked double shifts to buy her the house. It was never enough. But this check would be enough. This check was the end of her sighing. I stopped at a liquor store on the way home. I do not drink alcohol. I drink water and black coffee. But Althea loves wine. She pretends to know about vintages. I bought the most expensive bottle on the shelf. $500 for fermented grapes. The clerk looked at my credit card twice to make sure it was mine. I did not care. Tonight we would celebrate. Tonight I would be the hero. I drove my old Ford truck down our street. It is a quiet neighborhood. Decent houses, green lawns. I pulled into my driveway and checked my watch. It was 4 o'clock. I was an hour early. I usually stay at the shop to clean up until 5. I wanted to surprise her. But there was a car blocking the garage. A silver BMW. I knew that car. It belonged to Hunter, my son-in-law. Hunter is 35 years old. He is white. He is a real estate agent who spends more time at the country club than showing houses. He treats me like I am his gardener. He calls me Pops with a tone that implies I am slow. He married my daughter Kenya 5 years ago. Since then, Kenya has changed. She used to be my little girl. Now she looks at me with Hunter's eyes. She sees an embarrassing old man in dirty clothes. I parked on the street. I grabbed the heavy bottle of wine. I patted my chest to make sure the check was still there. I walked up the path to the front door. The house was quiet. The curtains were drawn. I reached for my keys. I was about to unlock the door when I heard a sound. It was laughter. Loud, raucous laughter. It was coming from the living room. I stopped. My hand hovered over the lock. The laughter did not sound joyful. It sounded cruel. It sounded like the way wolves laugh when they corner a deer. I heard Hunter's voice. It was loud and arrogant. I lowered my hand. I leaned closer to the door. The wood is old. The seal is not tight. I could hear them clearly. I cannot believe he bought that story, Hunter said. He was laughing so hard he was choking. The old fool actually thinks I respect his opinion on the market. Then I heard Kenya. My daughter. Her voice was sharp. He is getting worse, Hunter. Yesterday he forgot where he put his glasses. He is an embarrassment. Last week at the club he tried to fix the waiter's table leg. I wanted to die. We need to do it soon, Mom. My heart hammered against my ribs. What were they talking about? I waited for Althea to defend me. I waited for my wife to tell them to stop. I heard the clink of glasses. I heard the sound of expensive liquid being poured. Then I heard Althea. "Do not worry," she said. Her voice was smooth. It was the voice she used when she wanted something. "The old man trusts me completely. He is simple. He works. He comes home. He sleeps. He does not ask questions." The check in my pocket felt like a block of ice. I pressed my ear against the wood. "So when do we start?" Hunter asked. "I need this to happen fast, Althea. I have people breathing down my neck. That house is sitting on a gold mine. The market is peaking. We can get $800,000 for it cash." I blinked. They were talking about my house. The house I paid for. The house I built the deck for with my own hands. "We have to be smart," Althea said. "We cannot just sell it while he is competent. He will never agree. He says he wants to die in this house. Well, he might get his wish." Hunter snorted. "No," Althea said. "That is too messy. We need legal guardianship. We need to prove he is mentally unfit. I have a plan." I held my breath. The street was silent. A bird chirped in the oak tree I planted when Kenya was born. "You remember I used to be a nurse," Althea said. "I know how these things work. I have a friend at the pharmacy. I got a supply of the blue pills." "What blue pills?" Kenya asked. "They look exactly like his blood pressure medication," Althea explained. "But they are not for blood pressure. They are heavy sedatives mixed with hallucinogens. They are used for severe psychotic episodes. If you give them to a healthy person, they cause confusion, memory loss, tremors, paranoia." I touched my chest. "I take a white pill every morning." Althea puts it next to my coffee. She smiles and says, "Take your medicine, Isaiah." "Tonight I make the switch," Althea said. Her voice was cold. It was ice cold. "Tonight he starts taking the blue pill. In a week he will be forgetting words. In 2 weeks he will be wetting the bed. In a month he will be a drooling vegetable. Then we call Dr. Hill. He owes me a favor. He will certify Isaiah as having rapid onset dementia. We put him in the state facility on the edge of town. They are cheap. Then I get power of attorney. And we sell the house," Perfect Hunter said. The sound of glass clinking again. "To the blue pill." "Cheers," Kenya said. "To freedom." "Cheers," Althea said. "To getting what we deserve." I stood on the porch. The bottle of $500 wine was heavy in my hand. I looked at the label. It was a dark red, like blood. My knees felt weak. I had to grab the railing to stop from falling. My wife, my daughter, they were not just ungrateful. They were monsters. They were planning to erase me. They were going to poison my mind to steal my home. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. Not from age, from rage. A cold, hard rage that started in my stomach and spread to my fingertips. I thought about kicking the door down. I thought about smashing the bottle over Hunter's head. I am strong. I swing sledgehammers for a living. I could break him in half. But then I felt the check. $5.3 million. If I went in there now, I would be the angry black man. I would be the violent husband. They would call the police. They would use my anger against me. They would say, "Look, he is crazy, just like we said." No, that was not the way. I looked at the BMW in my driveway. I looked at the house I had painted last summer. I slowly backed away from the door. I walked down the steps. I made sure my boots did not crunch on the gravel. I got back into my truck. I placed the wine bottle on the passenger seat. I sat there for a moment. I looked at the house one last time. The house where I raised my child. The house where I thought I was loved. It was just wood and brick now. The home was gone. I started the engine. I backed out. I drove away. I did not go back to the shop. I drove to a park on the other side of town. I sat on a bench and I watched the sun go down. I took the check out of my pocket. I looked at the zeros. They wanted money. They wanted to sell my house for $800,000. They were willing to destroy my brain for it. They did not know I had $5 million in my pocket. They did not know that the man they called Simple was a chess player. I looked at the check. Then I looked at the phone number on a business card I had kept in my wallet for 5 years. It was the card of a lawyer named Ophelia Price. She was the woman who helped me with the patent lawsuit. She was expensive. She was ruthless. She hated bullies. I dialed the number. "Ophelia," I said. "It is Isaiah." "I won." I heard her calm voice. "Congratulations, Isaiah. I knew you would." "I am not calling to celebrate," I said. "I am calling because I need to hire you again." For what, she asked. "For a divorce," I said, "and for a fraud investigation, and maybe for attempted murder." I told her everything. I told her about the blue pills. I told her about the plan. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then Ophelia spoke. Her voice was sharp as a razor. "Do not go home tonight, Isaiah," she said. "Go to a hotel. Pay cash." "No," I said. "I have to go home." "Isaiah, that is dangerous," she said. "They are trying to poison you." "I know," I said, "but if I do not go home, they will know I suspect something. They will change the plan. They will hide the evidence. I need to catch them. I need them to give me that blue pill." "Isaiah, are you sure?" "I am sure," I said. "I want them to think they are winning. I want them to think I am the stupid old mechanic they laugh at." I hung up. I looked at the wine bottle. I opened it. I poured the expensive red liquid onto the grass. It soaked into the dirt like blood. I threw the empty bottle into the trash can. Then I drove home. When I walked through the door, Althea was in the kitchen. She was cooking stew. The house smelled like rosemary and thyme. It smelled like a lie. Hunter and Kenya were gone. It was just the loving wife. "You are late, honey," she said. She wiped her hands on her apron. She came to me and kissed my cheek. Her lips were cold. "I was worried about you." I looked at her. I looked at the woman I had slept beside for 40 years. I saw a stranger. "I had to work late," I said. My voice was steady. The truck broke down. "Poor baby," she said. "You work too hard. Go wash up. Dinner is ready. And do not forget to take your medicine." I put it on the table. I looked at the table. There was a glass of water, and beside it, there was a single blue pill. It had begun. I walked back into the house at 6 o'clock. It was the time a mechanic comes home. The house was warm and smelled of roast beef. It was a smell I usually loved, but tonight it smelled like bait. Hunter was sitting in my recliner, the chair I bought with my overtime pay in '98. He did not stand up. He looked at me over the top of his phone with a shark grin. "Hey, Pops," he said. "You look beat. You look like you are falling apart at the seams." He stood up then and walked over to pat my shoulder. His hand was heavy and disrespectful. It was the way a man pats a dog he is about to put down. I felt the heat rise in my neck. I wanted to grab his wrist and twist it until he screamed. I am strong. My hands can bend steel. His hands are soft and have never held anything heavier than a golf club. But I did nothing. I let my shoulders slump and my head hang low. I played the part. "I am just a tired old man," I said. My voice cracked. It was a good performance. Kenya walked in wearing a new dress that looked expensive, probably paid for with my credit card. "Hi, Daddy," she said. She kissed my cheek, but it was dry and devoid of love. "Go wash up," she said. "Mom made your favorite." They were setting the stage. They were the actors. I was the prop. We sat at the dining table. Althea sat at the head. That was my seat, but she had taken it. I sat on the side like a guest. The food was good, but it tasted like ash in my mouth. They talked about money and the market. Hunter talked about a deal he was closing. It was a lie. I knew he was broke and owed money to bad men, but he bragged. He looked at me and said, "You would not understand the complexities of finance, Isaiah. It is a young man's game." I chewed my meat and swallowed. I thought about the check in the glove box of my truck. $5.3 million. I understood finance just fine. Then the moment came. The chatter stopped. Althea cleared her throat. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small plastic cup. She set it next to my water glass. Inside was a single pill. It was blue. It was a bright electric blue. It was not my blood pressure medicine. My medicine is white and round. This was oval. "Take your medicine, honey," Althea said. Her voice was like syrup. "It is a new supplement the doctor recommended. It will help your brain. It will help you focus." I looked at the pill. I looked at Althea. I remembered 30 years ago. Althea was a nurse in the neurological ward. She used to come home and tell me stories about the unruly patients. She told me about the chemical cocktails they used to shut them down. She called it the quiet time. She knew dosages. She knew interactions. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was not giving me a supplement. She was giving me a chemical lobotomy. I picked up the pill. My hand trembled. I made sure it trembled. I wanted them to see the shake. I wanted them to see the weakness. I opened my mouth and tossed the pill in, but I did not swallow. I tucked it under my tongue. It was a trick I learned from an old man in the shop years ago who used to hide his tobacco there. The pill tasted bitter. It burned the soft skin under my tongue. I took a big gulp of water and swallowed the liquid. I smiled at Althea. There, I said, all gone. Good boy, she said. She patted my hand. Now go rest. You look exhausted. I stood up and shuffled my feet. I walked to the hallway bathroom and locked the door. I turned on the faucet and coughed loudly to cover the sound. I spit the blue pill into a tissue. It was starting to dissolve. The blue dye stained the white paper. I flushed it down the toilet and watched it swirl away. That was my sanity swirling away. If I had swallowed that, I would be lost. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were clear. My jaw was set. I was not the man they thought I was. I went to the bedroom and took off my work boots. I took off my uniform. I laid down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I waited. The bitterness was still in my mouth. It was the taste of betrayal. It was 2 a.m. The house was silent. I lay on my side, breathing in a slow, steady rhythm. In and out. In and out. I was pretending to be in a deep, drugged sleep. The door handle turned. It was a slow, metallic click. A slice of light from the hallway cut across the floor. I did not move. I did not twitch. I felt a presence in the room. It was the smell of lavender lotion. Althea. She crept toward the nightstand, moving like a ghost. She knew exactly where I kept my wallet. I heard the soft leather scrape against the wood. I heard the zipper open. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was loud. I was terrified she would hear it. She was robbing me. The woman I had vowed to protect was robbing me in my sleep. I heard the plastic slide of a card being pulled out. It was my debit card, the card for my pension account. It was the only money I had access to for daily life. She put the wallet back and closed the zipper. She stood over me for a moment. I could feel her eyes on my face. I wondered if she felt any guilt. I wondered if she remembered the day we got married. I wondered if she remembered the days we scraped pennies together to buy bread. Sleep tight, old man, she whispered. Her voice was cold. It was devoid of affection. She turned and left. The door clicked shut. I opened my eyes in the darkness. A single tear rolled down my cheek into my ear. It was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of pure, cold rage. The sun came up. It was bright and cheerful. It was a lie. I got dressed and walked into the kitchen. Althea was making coffee. She was humming. She looked happy. She thought she had won. She thought the blue pill was working. She thought I was confused. Good morning, Isaiah, she said. How did you sleep? Like the dead, I said. I sat at the table. I reached for my pocket. I patted my pants. I patted my shirt. I stood up and looked around the floor. What is wrong? She asked. She took a sip of her coffee and watched me over the rim of the mug. Her eyes were predatory. My wallet, I said. I checked it. My bank card is gone. I had it yesterday. I used it to buy gas. Now it is gone. Althea put the mug down. She sighed. A long, dramatic sigh. Oh, Isaiah, she said. Not again. You are always losing things lately. Yesterday it was your glasses. Today it is your card. You are getting so forgetful. I did not lose it, I said. My voice was firm. I put it in my wallet. Someone took it. She laughed. A short, sharp laugh. Who took it, Isaiah? Me. Hunter. Kenya. Why would we take your little pension card? We have our own money. You probably dropped it at the store, or maybe you threw it in the trash. You get so confused when you are tired. I looked at her. She was wearing a silk robe. She looked comfortable. She looked like the mistress of the house. I knew she had the card in her purse. I knew she was going to drain the account. I knew she was going to use my money to buy loyalty from her daughter and her son-in-law. But I could not fight her. Not yet. I had to play the game. I had to be the confused old man. Maybe you are right, I said. I rubbed my forehead. I feel foggy. My head hurts. It must be the new medicine. See, she said. I told you. You just need to adjust. Do not worry about the card. I will call the bank. I will handle the money from now on. You are too old to worry about finances. You just rest. I will take care of everything. She smiled. It was the smile of a jailer closing the cell door. She had taken my money. She had taken my dignity. She thought she had taken my mind. She was wrong. She had only taken the bait. Hunter arrived at 7 o'clock. He walked in like he owned the place. He carried a thick leather portfolio under his arm and a bottle of expensive bourbon in his hand. He did not knock. He just walked in and threw his keys on the counter. The sound of the metal hitting the granite made me flinch. It was a calculated noise. He wanted to see if the old man would jump. I did. I played my part. I looked up from my plate with wide, fearful eyes. "Hey, Pops," he said. His voice was loud. Too loud, like he was talking to a deaf dog. He sat down at the table directly across from me. He placed the leather portfolio on the table. He pushed it forward just enough so I could read the label on the tab. It said, "Property Valuation and Liquidation Strategy." He did not even try to hide it. He wanted me to see it. He wanted me to know that my home was already just a line item on a spreadsheet to him. Althea walked in from the kitchen carrying a tray of roast potatoes. She smiled at Hunter. It was a genuine smile, a smile she had not given me in 20 years. "Hello, darling," she said. "Did you have a good day?" Hunter sighed and loosened his tie. He poured himself a drink without asking. "Brutal," he said. "The market is shifting. We have to move fast on assets before the bubble bursts." He looked at me when he said it. His eyes were cold blue chips of ice. He took a sip of the bourbon and grimaced. He looked around the dining room. He looked at the oak cabinets I installed. He looked at the crown molding I cut by hand. "This place is a time capsule," he said. "It smells like 1980. We need to gut it. Open concept. Modern fixtures. Get rid of all this junk." I looked down at my plate. I gripped my fork. This junk was my life. This junk was the sweat off my brow. "What is that?" he asked. He pointed a manicured finger at the small sketchbook sitting next to my elbow. I had brought it to the table by mistake. It was an old habit. I always sketched ideas when I ate. It was how I solved problems. It was filled with diagrams of gear ratios and valve timings. It was the notebook where I had drawn the original design for the transmission system 30 years ago. The design that was stolen. The design that just won me $5 million. "It is nothing," I said. I tried to cover it with my napkin. "Just some drawings." Hunter reached out and snatched the book from under my hand. "Let me see," he said. He flipped through the pages. He laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. "Look at this, Kenya. Look what your father does all day. He draws circles and lines." Kenya leaned over. She looked at the intricate technical drawings. I hoped she would see the genius in them. I hoped she would remember the times I helped her with her geometry homework using these same drawings. But she just rolled her eyes. "Oh, Daddy," she said. "You are still messing with that stuff." Hunter tossed the book back onto the table. It landed open. A page with a complex fuel injection system fluttered in the draft. "Pops," he said, "listen to me. We are in the age of artificial intelligence. We have computers that can design engines in seconds. Nobody uses pencils and paper anymore. This is garbage. You are living in this past. You are obsolete." I felt the heat rise in my chest. Obsolete. That was the word the executives used when they fired me 30 years ago. They said my skills were obsolete. They lied then, and Hunter was lying now. I wanted to tell him that this garbage had just beaten a billion-dollar corporation in federal court. I wanted to tell him that my obsolete brain was worth more than his entire existence. But I stayed silent. I poked at a potato. "You are probably right," I mumbled. "I am just an old man with a pencil." "Exactly," Hunter said. He poured more bourbon. His hand was unsteady. He was already drunk. Or maybe he was high. His pupils were pinned. He leaned forward. His elbow knocked into his wine glass. It was a tall crystal goblet filled with the dark red blend Althea loved. It happened in slow motion. The glass tipped. The red liquid surged over the rim. It splashed across the table. It hit the open sketchbook. "No," I shouted. I reached out, but I was too old. Too slow. Or maybe I just froze. The wine soaked into the paper. It turned the white pages purple. The ink began to run. The sharp lines of my invention blurred into a dark mess. The calculations I had written in the margins dissolved. That book was not just paper. It was the original proof. It was the artifact of my struggle. It was the only thing I had left from the days when I still believed the world was fair. Hunter did not apologize. He did not jump up to get a towel. He just sat there and watched the wine ruin my life work. "Oops," he said. His voice was flat. He did not care. I stared at the ruined drawing. My hands started to shake. This time it was not an act. It was pure, unadulterated fury. I looked at Kenya, my daughter, my flesh and blood. Surely she would be angry. Surely she would see the disrespect. Kenya giggled. She covered her mouth with her hand, but I saw the smile. "Oh, Hunter," she said, "you are so clumsy. Do not worry, Daddy. It is just scrap paper. We can buy you a coloring book if you want to draw." Scrap paper. The air left the room. The sound of the clock on the wall became a deafening tick, tick, tick. I looked at the steak knife lying next to my plate. It was a heavy serrated blade with a wooden handle. I grabbed it. My knuckles turned white. The wood felt warm in my palm. I looked at Hunter's neck. It was exposed. He was laughing at something Althea said. The vein in his neck pulsed. One strike. That was all it would take. One strike to wipe that smirk off his face forever. One strike to teach him respect. I tightened my grip. The muscles in my forearm coiled. I could feel the violence wanting to get out. It was a dark, heavy thing in my gut. I started to lift the knife. Then I looked out the dining room window. The street light was on. It illuminated my old Ford truck parked in the driveway. The glove box was closed, but I knew what was inside. $5.3 million. If I struck him now, I would lose everything. I would go to prison. They would take the money. They would take the house. They would win. They would say I was a violent, crazy old man. They would say they were right to medicate me. I took a deep breath. It shuddered in my chest. I forced my fingers to open. I dropped the knife. It clattered onto the china plate. The sound rang out like a gunshot in the quiet room. Everyone stopped talking. They looked at me. "I am sorry," I whispered. "My hands are slippery. I am so clumsy." Hunter sneered. "You should be careful, Pops. You should not play with sharp objects. You might hurt yourself." Althea stood up. She grabbed the sodden sketchbook. She crumpled the wet pages in her fist. "I will throw this away," she said. "It is ruined anyway. You do not need it, Isaiah. It is just clutter." She threw my life work into the trash can in the corner. She threw it away like it was a used napkin. "I cannot eat," I said. "My stomach hurts." "Go lie down," Althea said. She did not look at me. She was already pouring more wine for Hunter. "Do not forget we have a big day tomorrow. We are going to see Dr. Hill." I stood up. My legs felt like lead. I walked out of the dining room. I heard them start talking again before I even left the room. They were talking about kitchen renovations. They were already spending the money from the house sale. I did not go to the bedroom. I went to the back door. I needed air. I needed to breathe something that did not smell of betrayal. I walked into the garage. It was cold and dark. It smelled of oil and gasoline and sawdust. It was the only place in the world where I still felt like a man. My tools were hanging on the wall in perfect order. My workbench was clean. This was my church. I closed the door and locked it. I leaned against the workbench and let out a sob that I had been holding for 3 hours. It racked my body. I wiped my face with a shop rag. I reached into the hidden compartment behind the tool chest. I pulled out my burner phone. I had bought it 3 days ago with cash. Althea tracked my regular phone. She had installed an app to find me if I wandered off. She treated me like a child. I dialed the number for Ophelia Price. It was late, past 8 o'clock. But she answered on the first ring. "Price," she said. Her voice was sharp and clear. "It is Isaiah," I said. My voice was steady now. The tears were gone. "Isaiah," she said. "Are you safe?" "I am in the garage," I said. "They are inside drinking my wine and planning my funeral." "Did you take the pills?" "No," I said. "I spit them out. But Ophelia, they destroyed my drawings. They laughed at me." Hunter brought the papers to sell the house. "Listen to me, Isaiah," she said. Her voice dropped an octave. It became deadly serious. "You need to focus. Anger is a luxury you cannot afford right now. You are a soldier behind enemy lines." "I know," I said. "I almost lost it tonight. I almost hurt him." "Do not," she said. "That is what they want. They want you to snap. They want you to look dangerous. If you hurt him, you lose the high ground. You lose the money. I have the check," I said. "It is in the truck. $5.3 million. "Good," she said. "Keep it there. Do not deposit it yet. If you put it in your joint account, Althea gets half instantly. We need to secure it." "How?" I asked. "I am setting up a blind trust," she said. "We will move the money there. It will be untouchable." But we need to meet. I need your signature on the incorporation documents, and I need to see the evidence you have gathered. When I asked, "Tonight," she said. "Can you get out?" "I can sneak out," I said. "They are drunk. They will be asleep soon." "Good," she said. "Meet me at the all-night diner on 4th Street. 3 a.m. Wear a hat. Park around the back." And Isaiah. "Yes, do not drink anything they give you. Not water, not milk, nothing. If you get thirsty, drink from the tap in the garage." "Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. "One more thing," she said. "Why are they doing this, Isaiah? Why now?" I looked at the trash can in the corner of the garage. I looked at the shadow of the house where my wife and child were plotting against me. "Because they are hungry," I said. "They are wolves, Ophelia, and they think I am a wounded sheep." Ophelia paused. Then she said something that made me smile for the first time that night. "They forgot one thing, Isaiah." "What is that?" "Rams have horns," she said. "See you at 3. I hung up the phone and hid it back behind the tool chest. I walked over to the old utility sink in the corner. I turned on the tap. The water was cold and tasted of iron. I drank from my cupped hands. It was the best water I had ever tasted. It tasted like survival. I unlocked the garage door and walked back into the house. The lights were dim. I heard snoring coming from the living room. Hunter was passed out on the sofa. His mouth was open. He looked weak. He looked pathetic. I walked past him. I went to the bedroom. Althea was already in bed. She was pretending to sleep. I could tell by the rhythm of her breathing. It was too even, too perfect. I stripped off my clothes and put on my pajamas. I climbed into bed beside the woman who wanted to erase my mind. I lay there in the dark and listened to the house settle. I did not sleep. I watched the red numbers on the alarm clock change. 1, 2, 2:30. It was time. I slid out of bed. I did not make a sound. I put on my dark coveralls. I put on my boots. I grabbed my hat. I crept through the house like a thief. I passed Hunter on the couch. I passed Kenya's old room. I went out the back door. The night air was crisp. The moon was hidden behind clouds. It was a perfect night for a conspiracy. I got into my truck. I did not start the engine. I put it in neutral and let it roll down the driveway. The tires crunched softly on the gravel, but the sound was swallowed by the wind. I let it roll down the street until I was 2 blocks away. Then I turned the key. The engine roared to life. It was a loud, defiant sound. I drove toward 4th Street. I drove toward the woman who was going to help me sharpen my horns. I was not a sheep. I was not a victim. I was Isaiah Washington. And I was going to war. I pulled my truck into the lot of Earl's Diner at 3 in the morning. It was a place where truckers and insomniacs went to hide from the dark. The neon sign buzzed with a dying flicker. I pulled my hat low over my eyes and walked in. The air smelled of burnt coffee and stale grease. Ophelia Price was sitting in the back booth. She looked like a shark in a tank of minnows. Her suit was sharp enough to cut glass. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on me. I slid into the booth opposite her. I placed the thick envelope containing the check on the table between us. I did not let go of it. "You look like hell, Isaiah," she said. She did not smile. She signaled the waitress for coffee. "I feel like hell," I said. "I slept next to a woman who was poisoning me, Ophelia." I spat out a blue pill that would have turned my brain to mush. Ophelia leaned forward. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Listen to me very carefully, Isaiah. We do not have much time. I ran a background check on your son-in-law. Hunter is drowning. He owes $2 million to people who break legs for a living." I nodded. I knew he was desperate. I did not know it was that bad. "He needs your house," Ophelia said. "He needs it now. And the law in this state gives him a terrifyingly easy way to get it. It is called emergency guardianship." "What is that?" I asked. "It is a legal bear trap," she said. "If they can prove you are mentally incapacitated even for a short time, they can get a judge to sign over control of your life. They can freeze your accounts. They can make your medical decisions. And yes, they can sell your property to pay for your care. But I am fine," I said. My voice rose. "I am sane. I just won a patent lawsuit. It does not matter," she hissed. "Truth does not matter in family court, Isaiah. Documentation matters. If they have a doctor who says you are senile and a wife who says you are dangerous, the judge will sign the order. They do not need to prove you are crazy forever. They just need to prove you are incompetent right now." Once they have the signature, your house is sold before you can even hire a lawyer to appeal. I felt a cold sweat break out on my back. They were not just trying to steal my money, they were trying to steal my existence. They were trying to turn me into a non-person. They are building a file, Ophelia continued. Every time you get angry, they mark it down. Every time you forget something, they mark it down. And now, they are bringing in a professional. I saw an appointment scheduled on Althea's calendar. She synced it with the family cloud account Hunter uses. A Dr. Hill is coming to your house tomorrow morning. Who is Dr. Hill? I asked. He is a doctor for hire, Ophelia said. He runs a private psychiatric facility on the edge of town. He has a reputation. He signs whatever you pay him to sign. If he walks into your house tomorrow, he is not there to examine you. He is there to condemn you. What do? I asked. I gripped the table. You have to be perfect, she said. You cannot get angry, you cannot shout, you cannot cry. You have to be the most rational, boring, calm man on earth. If you show 1 ounce of emotion, he will label it as agitation. If you hesitate, he will label it as confusion. She slid a document across the table. It was the trust agreement. Sign this, she said. We will move the patent money into the Blind Mechanic Trust. It will be untouchable. Even if they get guardianship, they cannot touch assets you do not technically own anymore. I signed the papers. My hand was steady. I handed her the check. Keep it safe, I said. I will, she said. Now go back. Sneak in. Do not let them know you left. And Isaiah, yes. Tomorrow morning you are fighting for your life. Do not blink. I drove home in the darkness. I parked the truck and let it roll the last 100 feet. I crept back into the house. I climbed back into bed. Althea shifted in her sleep. She muttered something about money. I lay there and watched the sun come up. I was ready. At 9 o'clock the doorbell rang. I was sitting in the living room reading the newspaper. I made sure to hold it steady. I was wearing a clean shirt. I had shaved. I looked like a man in control. Althea answered the door. She was wearing her church clothes. She used her sweet voice. Oh, Dr. Hill, thank you for coming on such short notice. We are just so worried about him. She led a man into the living room. Dr. Hill was tall and thin. He wore a gray suit that looked expensive but fit poorly. He had a face like a ferret, sharp nose, beady eyes. He carried a leather notebook. He did not look at me. He looked at Althea. Is this the patient? He asked. He spoke about me like I was a piece of furniture. Yes, Althea said. She dabbed at her dry eyes with a tissue. This is my husband, Isaiah. Isaiah, this is a friend of mine. He just stopped by for coffee. I folded my newspaper. I stood up. I extended my hand. Good morning, doctor, I said. My voice was calm. I did not know we were expecting company. Dr. Hill looked surprised. He expected a drooling vegetable. He shook my hand. His grip was wet and weak. Just a friendly visit, Isaiah, he said. Please sit down. He sat opposite me. Althea sat next to him. She looked nervous. She kept glancing at the kitchen where Hunter and Kenya were hiding. So, Isaiah, Dr. Hill said. He opened his notebook. Althea tells me you have been having some trouble lately. Memory slips, confusion. I smiled politely. I am 70 years old, doctor, I said. I forget where I put my keys sometimes. But I remember the gear ratios of a 1965 Mustang. Dr. Hill did not smile. He scribbled something. Fixation on past events, he muttered. He looked up. His eyes were cold. Let us talk about yesterday, Isaiah. Do you remember yesterday? Yes, I said. I worked at the shop. I came home. I ate dinner. Do you remember the fire? He asked. The room went silent. The clock on the wall ticked. Fire, I asked. Yes, Isaiah, Dr. Hill said. His voice was patronizing. Althea says you tried to burn the house down. You turned on the gas stove and tried to light a newspaper. She had to stop you. Do you remember that? I looked at Althea. She was looking at the floor. She was trembling. He got so angry, doctor, she whispered. He was screaming about how the house was cold. He said he wanted to warm it up. I was terrified. It was a lie. A monstrous, detailed lie. They were framing me for arson. If I was an arsonist, I was a danger to myself and others. That was the golden ticket for emergency guardianship. I felt the rage rising in my gut. It was a hot red wave. I wanted to stand up and scream that she was a liar, I wanted to tell him that I knew about the blue pills. I wanted to flip the table, but then I heard Ophelia's voice in my head. "Do not blink, Isaiah." I took a deep breath. I let it out slowly. I looked Dr. Hill in the eye. "That is an interesting story," I said, "but it is impossible." "Why is it impossible, Isaiah?" Dr. Hill asked. He sounded bored. He was already writing the diagnosis. "Because we have an electric stove," I said. Dr. Hill stopped writing. He looked at Althea. Althea turned pale. "We switched to electric 5 years ago," I continued. My voice was level. "It is a GE Profile Series induction cooktop. It has a safety lock. You cannot light a newspaper with it because there is no open flame. Would you like to go to the kitchen and see?" Althea stood up quickly. "Oh my goodness," she said. Her voice was high and shrill. "I must have gotten confused. Maybe it was the toaster." Yes, he tried to put the paper in the toaster. I looked at Dr. Hill. He knew she was lying. I knew he knew. A real doctor would have seen the panic in her eyes. A real doctor would have asked why she was changing her story. But Dr. Hill was not a real doctor. He was a hired gun. He cleared his throat. He did not look at the kitchen. He did not check the stove. He looked back at his notebook. "Confusion regarding household appliances," he said as he wrote. "Agitation when confronted with past actions. Possible denial of violent episodes." I stared at him. It did not matter. Facts did not matter. I could have shown him a video of me sleeping all day, and he would have written down that I was comatose. He looked up at me again. "Let us try a simple test, Isaiah. What is the date today?" "It is Tuesday, October 24th, I said. "And who is the president?" I answered him. "Count backward from 100 by sevens. 93, 86, 79, 72, 65. I did not stumble. I did not pause. I was a mechanic. Numbers were my language. I recited them with the precision of a piston firing. Dr. Hill frowned. He did not like that. He wanted me to fail. He leaned forward. "Why are you so defensive, Isaiah?" he asked. "I am not defensive," I said. "I am answering your questions." "You seem hostile," he said. "Your hands are clenched. Your jaw is tight. Do you feel like you want to hurt Althea?" "No," I said. "Do you feel like people are watching you? Do you feel like people are plotting against you?" This was the trap, the ultimate trap. If I said yes, I was paranoid. If I said no, I was in denial about my condition. I looked at the ceiling. I looked at the floor. I decided to tell the truth, but in a way he could not use. "I feel like a man who has worked hard all his life," I said. "I feel like a man who loves his family. I feel like a man who is tired of answering questions about a fire that never happened." Dr. Hill closed his notebook with a snap. It sounded like a judge gavel. "I have seen enough," he said. He stood up. Althea stood up with him. "Thank you, doctor," she said. She looked at me with triumph in her eyes. "Is it bad?" "We will discuss the details outside," Dr. Hill said. "But yes, the signs are clear." He turned to me. "Take care, Isaiah," he said. "Try to get some rest." He walked to the door. Althea followed him. I sat in the chair. I watched them leave. I saw Dr. Hill slip the notebook into his pocket. I saw the edge of the page he had been writing on. The handwriting was large and jagged. I could read the words upside down. "Patient exhibits advanced dementia with paranoid delusions. Immediate custodial care recommended. Danger to self and others." He had written the diagnosis before he even walked in the door. My answers did not matter. The electric stove did not matter. The math did not matter. They had bought the verdict. I sat there in the silence. I heard them whispering on the porch. I heard Hunter laugh. They thought they had me. They thought I was trapped in their legal web. They thought I was a helpless old man who would go quietly into the night. I stood up. I walked to the window and watched Dr. Hill drive away in his Mercedes. They were right about one thing. I was dangerous, but not to myself. I walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge and took out a bottle of water. I broke the seal. I drank it. Then I went to the garage. I needed a screwdriver. I needed a wrench. I needed to prepare, because tonight they would try to take me, and tonight I would be ready. I sat on a milk crate in the back of my garage, hidden behind a stack of old tires. My burner phone buzzed against my leg. It was Ophelia. Her voice was tight. "Do not take your truck, Isaiah," she said. "Do not take your phone. I had my tech guy run a diagnostic on the cloud account your wife shares with Hunter. They installed a tracking app on your cell phone yesterday morning, and Hunter put a GPS tag under the rear bumper of your Ford. They are watching every move you make. If you drive to the First National Bank downtown, they will know. If you step foot in a lawyer office, they will know." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I was not just a prisoner in my home. I was a prisoner in my own life. They were tracking me like a migrating animal. They wanted to know if the sheep was straying from the pasture. I looked at my old truck. I had driven that truck for 20 years. Now it was a spy. I looked at my regular cell phone sitting on the workbench. It was blinking, a silent beacon telling them I was exactly where they wanted me to be. "I need to deposit the check, Ophelia," I whispered. "It is not safe here. If they find it, they will destroy it or force me to sign it over." "You need a blind trust," she said. "I have the paperwork ready at the bank. The manager is expecting you. His name is Mr. Sterling. He is the only one who knows the truth, but you have to get there without tripping the alarms. If Althea sees you heading downtown, she will call Dr. Hill. She will say you are wandering. She will say you are lost. They will have the police pick you up before you even park the car." I hung up. I looked at the check in my pocket. $5.3 million. It was a ticket to freedom, but I had to cross a minefield to use it. I needed a decoy. I needed a ghost. I grabbed my regular phone. I put it in my pocket. I walked out to my truck. I drove it slowly down the street. I drove the speed limit. I drove to the only place a senile old mechanic would go on a Wednesday morning. I drove to Otis Repair Shop. Otis has been my friend since Vietnam. He has one eye and a heart of gold. He runs a scrap yard on the south side. I pulled into his lot. The air smelled of rust and ozone. Otis was welding a muffler. He lifted his mask when he saw me. He saw the look on my face. He turned off the torch. "I need a favor, Otis," I said, "and I need you not to ask questions." "Name it Isaiah," he said. I took out my phone. I unlocked it. I handed it to him. "I need you to take this phone for a walk," I said. "Go to the park, sit by the duck pond, feed the birds, stay there for 2 hours, then come back here." Otis looked at the phone. He looked at me. He nodded. "And I need your truck," I said. Otis looked at his rusted Chevy. It had no bumper. The paint was peeling. It looked like it belonged in the crusher. "It pulls to the left," he said. "And the brakes are soft." "Perfect," I said. I left my Ford parked in his lot. It would look like I was just visiting an old friend. Althea would check the tracker. She would see me at the scrapyard. Then she would see me at the park. She would think I was just being an old man wasting time. She would not look for me in the financial district. I climbed into Otis' truck. It smelled of stale cigar smoke. I pulled my hat low. I drove the back roads. I avoided the cameras. I drove into the city. I parked 3 blocks away from the First National Bank. I walked the rest of the way. I was wearing my grease-stained coveralls. My boots were muddy. I looked like a man who was lost. People stepped out of my way. They clutched their purses. They did not see Isaiah Washington. They saw a threat or a nuisance. I walked through the revolving doors of the bank. The air conditioning hit me like a wall of ice. The floors were marble. The ceilings were high. It smelled of money. A security guard stepped in front of me. He was big. He had a hand on his belt. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked. His voice was not helpful. It was a warning. "I need to see Mr. Sterling," I said. The guard looked me up and down. He smirked. "Mr. Sterling is the branch manager," he said. "He does not see walk-ins, especially not for accounts like yours. The ATM is outside." I did not move. I did not blink. I felt the check against my chest. "I am not here for the ATM," I said. "Tell him Isaiah Washington is here." The guard laughed. "Look, old-timer," he said. "You are making a scene. Go back outside before I have to escort you." People were staring. A teller was whispering to a colleague. They saw a crazy old black man causing trouble. They saw exactly what Althea wanted the world to see. I reached into my pocket. The guard tensed. He thought I was reaching for a weapon. I pulled out the check. I unfolded it. I slammed it onto the marble counter next to us. The sound echoed in the silent lobby. $5.3 million. The zeros were black and sharp. The seal of the court was visible. The guard looked down. His eyes went wide. The smirk vanished. He looked at the check. He looked at me. He swallowed hard. "Get Mr. Sterling," I said. My voice was low and hard. "Now." 5 minutes later, I was sitting in a leather chair in a corner office with a view of the skyline. Mr. Sterling was pouring me coffee. He treated me like royalty. We signed the papers. We set up the blind trust. The money was moved. It was no longer in my name. It was in the trust. Ophelia was the trustee. I was the beneficiary. Althea could not touch it. Hunter could not touch it. Even if they declared me incompetent 10 times over, they could not access funds that did not technically belong to me. I stood up. I shook Mr. Sterling's hand. I felt lighter. The weight was gone. I was safe. I walked out of the office. Mr. Sterling walked me to the door of the VIP section. I stepped back into the main lobby. I adjusted my hat. I was about to head for the exit when I heard a voice, a loud, desperate voice. "Come on, you have to approve it. The collateral is solid." I froze. I knew that voice. It was the voice of a man who bragged about wine he did not pay for. I looked toward the loan department. There was a row of desks behind a glass partition. Hunter was standing at one of them. He was red in the face. He was sweating. He was arguing with a loan officer who looked bored. "I cannot approve this, Mr. Davis," the officer said. "Your credit score is below 500. You have maxed out every line of credit. The house you are using as collateral is not in your name. It belongs to your father-in-law. He is signing it over to me next week," Hunter shouted. "It is a done deal. I just need a bridge loan. $50,000 just to cover some urgent expenses." I stared at him. He was begging. The shark was just a minnow on a hook. He needed $50,000 to pay the vigorish on his gambling debts. He was selling my house before he even stole it. I had to get past him to leave. The exit was right behind him. I pulled the brim of my hat down until it touched my nose. I hunched my shoulders. I adopted the walk of a tired laborer. I walked past the glass partition, my heart hammered against my ribs. Hunter slammed his hand on the desk. "This is ridiculous," he yelled. "Do you know who I am?" He turned his head. His eyes swept the lobby. His gaze landed on me. I kept walking. I did not look up. I focused on the revolving door. It was 20 feet away. 10 feet. Hunter stopped yelling. He squinted. He saw the coveralls. He saw the boots. "Pops," he said. It was a whisper at first, then louder. "Pops." I did not stop. I pushed through the revolving door. I hit the hot air of the street. I turned left and walked fast. I heard the door spin behind me. Hunter stepped out onto the sidewalk. He looked left. He looked right. I ducked into an alleyway. I pressed my back against the brick wall. I held my breath. I heard his footsteps on the pavement. He stopped at the mouth of the alley. "No," he muttered to himself. "It cannot be. The old fool is at the park. Althea is tracking him." He laughed a nervous sound. "I am losing it," he said. "I am seeing ghosts." He turned and went back inside to beg for money he would never get. I waited until he was gone. Then I walked back to Otis' truck. My hands were shaking, but I was smiling. Hunter had seen me. He did not believe his eyes because his arrogance blinded him. But a seed had been planted, a seed of doubt. He would go home tonight, and he would wonder. He would look at me and wonder if the sheep was actually a wolf, and that fear would make him careless. I drove back to the scrapyard. I traded trucks. I took my phone back from Otis. "Did you feed the ducks?" I asked. "They ate good today," Isaiah Otis said. "So did I." "Otis?" I said. "So did I." I drove home. I parked in the driveway. I walked into the house. Althea was waiting. "Did you have a nice time at the park?" she asked. Her eyes were sharp. "It was peaceful," I said. "I fed the birds." "That is nice," she said. She looked at my boots. They were clean. There was no mud from the duck pond. She frowned. I went to my room. The game was escalating. Hunter was desperate. Althea was suspicious. But the money was safe. Now I just had to survive the night. Hunter came back to the house late that afternoon. He was pacing the living room floor like a caged tiger. I was sitting in my chair pretending to watch a game show. I saw the sweat on his forehead. I saw the way his hands shook when he poured himself a drink. He was rattled. He had seen a ghost in the bank lobby, and he could not shake the feeling that the ghost was me. Althea walked in from the kitchen. She looked annoyed. "What is wrong with you, Hunter?" she asked. "You are making me nervous." "I saw him," Althea Hunter hissed. He kept his voice low, but I have good ears. "I saw Isaiah at the First National Bank downtown." Althea laughed. It was a cruel, dismissive sound. "That is impossible," she said. "I tracked him all day. The app said he was at the scrapyard and then at the park feeding ducks. He has not been downtown in 20 years. "I know what the app said," Hunter snapped. "But I know what I saw. I saw a man in coveralls. I saw those boots. It was him, Althea." "You are paranoid," Althea said. "You are letting the stress get to you. Isaiah is a senile old man. He does not even know what day it is. How could he get to the bank without a car?" "I do not know," Hunter said. "But if he has money, Althea, if he has a stash we do not know about, We are in trouble. We need to move this along. We cannot wait for Dr. Hill to file the paperwork. We need an incident. We need something big, something that proves he is a danger to the neighborhood. I watched them over the top of my magazine. I saw the wheels turning in Althea's eyes. She looked at Hunter. Then she looked at me. Her gaze was cold. It was calculating. "You are right," she said softly. "We need an accident. Something that screams dementia. Something that screams negligence." "What do you have in mind?" Hunter asked. "Gas," she said. "Old people always forget to turn off the stove. They leave the gas running. They blow up houses, if we catch him in the act. Or better yet, if we have to rescue him from his own mistake. The judge will grant emergency guardianship tonight." "But we have an electric stove," Hunter said. "He pointed that out to Hill, remember? We have a gas line for the fireplace," Althea said. "And there is a gas heater in the basement. A leak can happen anywhere, especially if someone tampers with the valve." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. They were not just going to frame me. They were going to risk blowing up the house to do it. They were desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. I went to bed at 9 o'clock. I locked my door. But I knew a lock on the inside meant nothing if they had the key. I lay in the dark, fully clothed under the covers. I gripped the handle of a heavy metal spoon I had stolen from the kitchen 3 days ago. It was an old silver spoon, solid, heavy. I had sharpened the handle against the concrete floor of the garage. It was not a spoon anymore. It was a pry bar. It was a weapon. I waited. I listened to the house breathe. I heard the wind rattle the windows. I heard the refrigerator hum. Then I heard it. A soft hissing sound. It was faint at first, like a snake in the grass. Sssss. I sat up. The smell hit me instantly. It was the smell of rotten eggs. Mercaptan. The chemical they add to natural gas so you know you are about to die. It was coming from under the door. They were pumping it in. They had probably opened the valve on the hallway heater, or maybe they ran a hose. It did not matter how. What mattered was the room was filling up. I jumped out of bed. My head was already starting to spin. The gas displaces oxygen. It makes you sleepy. It makes you weak. That was their plan. They wanted me to pass out. Then they would call 911. They would drag me out onto the lawn. They would tell the firemen I tried to kill myself. They would tell the police I was confused and messing with the pipes. It was the perfect narrative. I ran to the window. I tried to lift the sash. It was stuck, painted shut, or maybe screwed shut from the outside. I banged on the glass. It was double-paned thermal glass, hard to break without making a noise that would alert them. I ran to the door. I grabbed the handle. It would not turn. They had locked it from the hallway. I was trapped. The room was a gas chamber. I coughed. My lungs felt heavy. My eyes started to water. I needed air. I needed to get out. I knelt by the door. The gap at the bottom was where the gas was coming in strongest. I stuffed a towel there to slow the flow. It was a temporary fix. I looked at the hinges. They were old brass hinges, painted over a dozen times, but they were on the inside. That was their mistake. They thought locking the handle was enough. They forgot I was a mechanic. They forgot I spent my life taking things apart. I pulled the sharpened spoon from my pocket. My hands were shaking. The lack of oxygen was making my fingers numb. I had to focus. I had to find the rhythm. I jammed the tip of the spoon handle under the head of the top hinge pin. The paint cracked. I pushed hard. I used the doorframe for leverage. The pin moved, just a fraction of an inch. I gritted my teeth. I pushed again. My vision was blurring at the edges. I could hear my own heart beating in my ears. Thump, thump, thump. "Come on," I whispered. "Move." The pin popped up. I pulled it out with my fingers. 1 down, 2 to go. I moved to the bottom hinge. The air down there was thicker with gas. I held my breath. I wedged the spoon in. This pin was stubborn. It was rusted. I pushed until the silver handle bent in my hand. I pushed until I felt the metal bite into my palm. It gave way with a screech of metal on metal. I pulled the pin. The middle hinge was last. I was dizzy. I felt like I was underwater. I thought about Althea waiting in the hallway. I thought about Hunter smiling. No, I would not die here. I would not let them win. I attacked the last pin with everything I had left. I hammered the spoon handle with the heel of my boot. The pin flew out and hit the floor. The door was free. I grabbed the handle. I pulled the door toward me. It groaned. It came away from the frame. Fresh air from the hallway hit my face. It was not completely fresh, but it was better than the room. I stepped out into the hall. The gas smell was strong here too, but the source was a portable camping stove sitting on the floor right next to my door. The valve was open. The gas was hissing out. They had set it up perfectly. A camping stove. They would say I was playing with it. I reached down and turned the valve off. The hissing stopped. Silence returned to the house. I walked down the hall. My legs were wobbly, but my mind was clearing. I went to the living room. I opened the front door. I opened the back door. I opened every window on the first floor. The wind blew through the house. It swept away the poison. It swept away their plan. I went to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. My throat was dry. I sat down on the sofa in the living room. I crossed my legs. I took a sip of water. I waited. 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps upstairs. Rapid, frantic footsteps. Althea came running down the stairs. She was wearing a nightgown. Her hair was wild. She had a phone in her hand ready to dial 911. She was practicing her scream. She was ready to play the grieving widow. She reached the bottom of the stairs. She looked toward my bedroom door, expecting to see smoke or a slumped body. Then she saw me. I was sitting on the sofa. I was holding a glass of water. I was looking right at her. She stopped. She froze. Her face went gray. The phone slipped from her fingers and landed on the carpet with a thud. "Isaiah," she whispered. It was a sound of pure terror. "Good morning, Althea," I said. My voice was calm. It was the voice of a man who had stared death in the face and blinked. "You are awake," she stammered. I smelled gas." "Yes," I said, "I smelled it too. Someone left a camping stove on in the hallway." "That is very dangerous, Althea. You should be more careful." She stared at me. She could not process what she was seeing. I was supposed to be unconscious. I was supposed to be a victim. Hunter appeared at the top of the stairs. He was rubbing his eyes. "Is it done?" he asked. "Did you call them?" He saw Althea standing like a statue. He followed her gaze. He saw me. His jaw dropped. He gripped the banister. "Hey, Pops," he said. His voice cracked. "What are you doing up?" "I am enjoying the fresh air," I said. "It is a beautiful night. You boys really should open a window. It is stuffy in here." I took another sip of water. I watched them. I saw the fear in their eyes. They knew the plan had failed. They knew I knew. But they could not say it. They could not admit it, because if they admitted it, they would have to admit they tried to kill me. So they stood there, and I sat there. And for the first time in a long time, I was the one in control. "Go back to bed," I said. "I will handle the house, since I am the only one who knows how to operate a stove, apparently." They turned around and walked back up the stairs. They walked like prisoners going back to their cells. I stayed on the sofa. I watched the sun come up. I was alive, and I was angry. The game had changed. They had tried to take my life. Now I was going to take theirs, piece by piece. 2 days after I survived the gas chamber in my own bedroom, my daughter Kenya decided to throw me a birthday party. I was turning 70 in 3 months, but she insisted we could not wait. She said we had to celebrate while I was still with them. She said we had to cherish every moment. It was a lie. She did not want to celebrate my life. She wanted to document my decline. She wanted a stage to show a judge and a jury that Isaiah Washington was a confused, sloppy old relic who needed to be put away for his own good. The house was full of strangers at 6 o'clock on Saturday. They were not my friends. My friends drive pickup trucks and have grease under their fingernails. These people drove Teslas and wore shoes that cost more than my first car. They were Hunter's friends. They were clients he was trying to impress and creditors he was trying to appease. They stood in my living room drinking my liquor and looking at me with a mixture of pity and amusement. I sat in my armchair in the corner. I was wearing my best Sunday suit. Althea had spilled coffee on my lapel 5 minutes before the guests arrived. She said it was an accident. She tried to wipe it off, but she only smeared it. It was costume design. They wanted me to look stained. They wanted me to look like I could not feed myself. Kenya was the director of this production. She moved through the room with her phone held high. She was live streaming. She had a ring light clipped to the top of her device. She narrated the evening for her followers. "Here is the birthday boy," she chirped. She shoved the camera in my face. "Say hi, Daddy." "Look, everyone. He is having a good day today. He recognizes me. Isn't not that a blessing?" I looked into the black lens of the phone. I saw my own reflection. I looked tired. I looked old. I forced a smile. It felt like cracking plaster. "Hello," I said. "I am happy to be here." A murmur went through the room. Oh, how sweet, a woman in a red dress said. He is so lucid today. I gripped the armrests of my chair. My knuckles ached. I wanted to stand up and tell them to get out of my house. I wanted to tell them that I had built the engine in the vintage Mustang parked in the garage. I wanted to tell them I was smarter than all of them combined. But I sat still. Ophelia had warned me, do not blink. If I yelled, I was aggressive. If I cried, I was unstable. So I sat there and I let them stare at the monkey in the cage. Hunter walked to the center of the room. He clapped his hands. Attention, everyone, he shouted. Attention, please. It is time for the presentation. The room went quiet. Hunter stood next to Kenya. He put his arm around her waist. They looked like a perfect couple on a magazine cover. They looked like success. They looked like the future. I was the past. I was the anchor dragging them down. We have a very special gift for Pops today, Hunter announced. We know things have been getting harder for him lately. We know he struggles with the little things. Things we take for granted, like time and food. A few people chuckled. It was a nervous sound. So we wanted to give him something practical, Hunter said. Something to help him maintain his dignity. He reached behind the sofa and pulled out a large box wrapped in shiny silver paper. He walked over to me. He held it out. Open it, Pops, he said. His eyes were shining with malice. Go ahead. I took the box. It was light. I untied the ribbon. My fingers were steady. I peeled back the paper. I opened the lid. Inside there was a piece of yellow plastic and a box of brightly colored cardboard. I pulled out the plastic object. It was a bib, a baby bib. It was huge. It was made of rubber. It had a picture of a cartoon duck on the front. At the bottom there was a trough to catch spilled food. I pulled out the other object. It was a watch, but not a real watch. It was a toy. It was made of red and blue plastic. It had a face the size of a saucer with giant numbers. It was a toy for a toddler learning to tell time. To keep your shirt clean, Pops, Hunter said, his voice carried to the back of the room. And so you know when it is time for your nap. The silence held for a second. Then it broke. The room erupted in laughter. It was not warm laughter. It was cruel. It was the sound of a mob mocking the weak. They laughed at the old man holding the baby toys. They laughed at the mechanic who had been reduced to an infant. Kenya zoomed in with her camera. She was laughing too. Look, guys, she said to her followers. We are just trying to help him out. He is so cute with his little watch. I looked at Kenya, my daughter, my blood. I looked at her laughing face and the world seemed to stop. The noise of the party faded into a dull roar. I remembered a day 15 years ago. It was a Tuesday. It was raining. Kenya was 17. She was crying at the kitchen table. Her eyes were red and swollen. She had been invited to the prom by the captain of the football team. She needed a dress. She had found the perfect one. It was blue silk. It cost $400. I did not have $400. The shop had been slow. We were behind on the mortgage. I had holes in my work boots. But I could not bear to see her cry. I could not bear to see her feel less than the other girls. I stopped eating lunch for a month. I worked extra shifts on the weekends. I sold my grandfather's gold pocket watch to a pawn shop downtown. It was the only heirloom I had. I sold it for $300. I scraped together the rest from the change jar. I bought her the dress. I brought it home in a plastic bag to keep it dry. She screamed when she saw it. She hugged me so hard I lost my breath. You are the best daddy in the world, she said. I love you so much. I wore cardboard in my boots that winter. I was hungry every afternoon. But it was worth it to see her smile. Now that same girl was standing in front of me holding a phone like a weapon. She was selling my dignity for likes on the internet. She was laughing at the man who had starved for her. The pain in my chest was sharp. It was sharper than the knife I had almost used on Hunter. It was the pain of a heart breaking into dust. But I did not cry. I did not frown. I remembered the check. $5.3 million. I remembered the blind trust. I remembered the plan. I stood up. I moved slowly. I let my knees creak. I held up the yellow bib. Thank you, son, I said. My voice was loud enough to be heard over the laughter. It is a thoughtful gift. I put the bib around my neck. I fastened the Velcro. The plastic smelled of chemicals. I looked ridiculous. I knew I looked ridiculous. I picked up the toy watch. I strapped it to my wrist. It pinched my skin. I am glad you worry about my eating habits, I said. I smiled at the camera. I smiled at the strangers laughing at me. Then I turned to Hunter. I opened my arms. "I want to thank you," I said. "Come here, son. Give your old pop a hug." Hunter hesitated. He looked disgusted. He did not want to touch me, but the camera was rolling. He had to play the part of the loving son-in-law. He stepped forward. He leaned in. He patted my back stiffly. I wrapped my arms around him. I am strong. My arms are thick from lifting engines. I squeezed him. I squeezed him hard enough to make the air leave his lungs. I felt his body tense. I felt his panic. I leaned my head close to his. I put my lips right next to his ear. "Thank you for the watch, Hunter," I whispered. My voice was low. Only he could hear it. "It is good to know what time it is." He tried to pull away, but I held him fast. "Because time is running out," I whispered. "I know about the Porsche, Hunter. I know you borrowed $200,000 to buy it, and I know you have not made a payment in 4 months. He froze. He went rigid in my arms. "The bank called the house this morning. I lied. They were looking for you. They said they are coming to repossess it on Monday. They said they are going to tow it right out of the driveway while the neighbors watch." I felt him shudder. The smell of his expensive cologne turned sour with the scent of sudden fear. I pulled back. I looked him in the eyes. His face was pale. The smirk was gone. His eyes were wide and terrified. I patted his cheek. It was a hard, heavy pat, just like he had done to me. "Enjoy the party, son," I said. I turned away from him. I looked at Kenya. She was still filming, but her smile had faltered. She saw Hunter's face. She saw the fear. She did not understand what had happened, but she knew the script had changed. I walked to the table where the cake was sitting. It was a big cake. It had a number 70 on it in icing. I cut myself a slice. I ate it with a fork. I made sure to drop a crumb on the yellow bib. I looked at Hunter across the room. He was leaning against the wall. He was drinking whiskey straight from the glass. He was checking his phone frantically. He was checking his bank accounts. He was realizing that the floor was dropping out from under him. He looked up and met my gaze. I chewed my cake. I pointed to the toy watch on my wrist. I tapped the plastic face. "Tick-tock, Hunter, tick-tock." He mouthed 3 words to me from across the room. "You are dead." I smiled. I lifted my glass of water and a toast. Not yet, I thought. Not yet. The vibration of the burner phone in my pocket felt like an alarm clock waking me from a nightmare. I was in the garage pretending to organize my socket wrenches. I wiped the grease from my hands with a red shop rag and pulled out the phone. It was a message from Ophelia. She had sent a secure file. I tapped the screen. The document loaded slowly on the cheap data plan. It was a dossier from her private investigator. I read it standing up. My knees were too weak to sit. The investigator had dug deep into Hunter Davis. He had peeled back the layers of my son-in-law like a rotten onion. Hunter was not just a bad real estate agent. He was a gambler. He was a degenerate. The file showed records from underground casinos in Atlantic City and illegal sports books in Philadelphia. The numbers were staggering. Hunter had lost everything years ago. He had been borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. But Paul was tired of waiting. The last page of the report made my blood run cold. Hunter owed $2 million to a syndicate known for breaking knees and burying bodies in the Pine Barrens. The debt was called in 3 days ago. The deadline was next Tuesday. If Hunter did not pay, he would not just lose his car or his reputation, he would lose his life. I lowered the phone. It all made sense. The desperation, the gas leak, the rush to declare me incompetent. Hunter was not trying to get rich. He was trying to survive. My house was his life raft. It was worth $800,000. It was not enough to clear the debt, but it was enough to buy him time. It was enough to keep his fingers attached to his hands. He was willing to kill me to save himself. And my daughter Kenya was either too stupid to see it, or she was in on it too. I looked at the workbench. I saw a small black box. It was a diagnostic listening device I used to find engine knocks. It was a high-powered microphone with a magnetic base. It transmitted audio to a receiver up to 50 feet away. I grabbed it. I grabbed the receiver and a set of headphones. I walked back into the house. The air was thick with tension. Hunter was pacing in the dining room. Althea was in the kitchen. Kenya had left to go shopping with money she did not have. I walked into the dining room. I pretended to drop my napkin. I knelt down. I stuck the magnetic microphone to the metal bracket underneath the heavy oak table. It was invisible unless you were lying on the floor. I stood up. Hunter glared at me. "What are you doing, old man?" he asked. "Just picking up my napkin," I said. "I am clumsy, remember?" I shuffled out of the room. I went back to the garage. I put on the headphones. I turned up the volume. The sound was crystal clear. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear Hunter breathing. It sounded like a bellows fanning a fire. "Mom, come in here," Hunter shouted. "We need to talk." I heard Althea footsteps. I heard a chair scrape against the floor. "What is it, Hunter?" she asked. Her voice was tired. "I am making dinner." "Forget dinner," Hunter screamed. The sound spiked in my ears. I flinched. "Forget the food, Althea. We are out of time. I got a call an hour ago. They know where I live. They know where Kenya shops. They said if I do not have the first installment by Wednesday, they are going to start mailing pieces of me to you." "Hunter, calm down," Althea said. "We are moving as fast as we can." Dr. Hill submitted the paperwork. "The court date is in 2 weeks." "2 weeks," Hunter roared. "I do not have 2 weeks. I do not have 2 days. I am a dead man, Althea. Do you understand that? They will kill me, and then they will come for Kenya. Do you want that? Do you want your daughter to be a widow or worse?" I heard Althea gasp. "No, Hunter. Of course not." "Then we have to end this," Hunter said. His voice dropped to a hiss. "We cannot wait for the courts. We cannot wait for the state to process the guardianship. We need to liquidate the asset now. And we cannot do that while Isaiah is breathing." I sat on my stool in the garage. I gripped the edge of the workbench. I stared at a calendar on the wall. It was a picture of a lighthouse. I focused on the light. "What are you saying, Hunter?" Althea asked. "You know what I am saying," Hunter said. "The gas did not work. The old fool is like a cockroach. He survived. But we cannot fail again. We need to be direct. We need to be sure." Althea was silent. I could hear the clock ticking in the dining room. Tick, tick, tick. "You have the pills," Hunter said. "You have the heavy stuff. The ones you used to steal from the hospital. The ones for the violent patients." "I have them," Althea whispered. "But they are strong, Hunter. Too strong. If I give him too many, his heart will stop." "That is the point," Hunter said. "His heart stops. He is 70 years old. He has a history of high blood pressure. Nobody will question it. It happens every day. Old men die in their sleep. It is natural. It is a mercy." "Murder," Althea said. "You are talking about murder." "I am talking about survival," Hunter snapped. "It is him or me, Althea. Choose. Choose right now. Do you want to save the senile old man who wets himself, or do you want to save your son-in-law and your daughter? Because if I go down, I am taking everyone with me." There was a long silence. I held my breath. I waited for my wife of 40 years to say no. I waited for her to slap him. I waited for her to call the police. "Okay," Althea said. Her voice was flat. It was dead. "Okay. You will do it tonight," Hunter said. "Tonight," Althea agreed. "Make sure it is enough," Hunter said. "Make sure he does not wake up." "I will use 10, she said. 10 milligrams of diazepam mixed with the beta blockers. It will stop a horse." "Good," Hunter said. "Do it after dinner. Put it in something sweet. He loves sweets." I took off the headphones. My hands were cold. My heart was beating so slow I thought it might stop on its own. It was not fear. It was grief. The woman I loved was gone. She had died a long time ago. The creature in my kitchen was a stranger. I sat there for an hour. I watched the sun go down. I watched the shadows lengthen across the floor. I thought about the life I had built. I thought about the transmission I designed. I thought about the $5.3 million in the blind trust. They wanted me dead. They wanted my money. But they had made a mistake. They thought I was weak. They thought I was alone. I stood up. I walked to the corner of the garage. There was a potted aloe vera plant there. It was dying. The soil was dry. I went back inside the house. I walked into the living room. Hunter was watching television. He looked relaxed. He smiled at me. It was the smile of a man who thought his problems were solved. "Hey, Pops," he said. "Hungry?" "Not really," I said. "My stomach is a little upset." "That is too bad," Althea called from the kitchen. "I made cookies, and I am heating up some milk. It will help you sleep." I walked to my bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed. I waited. 10 minutes later, Althea walked in. She was carrying a tray. On the tray was a steaming mug of hot milk and a plate of oatmeal cookies. The smell of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the room. It smelled like comfort. It smelled like home. "Here you go, darling," she said. She set the tray on the nightstand. She sat down beside me. She put her hand on my knee. Her hand was warm. "You look tired, Isaiah," she said. "You have been pacing all day. You need to rest." "I am tired, Althea," I said. I looked at her face. I looked for a sign of hesitation. I looked for a tear. There was nothing. Her eyes were clear. Her smile was steady. She was a professional. She was doing a job. "Drink this," she said. She lifted the mug. "It is warm milk with honey and spices, just like your mother used to make. It will help you relax." I took the mug. The ceramic was hot against my palms. I looked into the liquid. It was frothy and white. I could see specks of nutmeg floating on top, and I could see tiny white grains that had not fully dissolved. The poison, 10 pills. Enough to stop a horse. Enough to stop a husband. I lifted the mug to my lips. The steam hit my face. "Drink up," Althea urged. Her voice was soft. It was a lullaby. "Drink up and sleep." I lowered the mug. I looked at her. "You are so good to me, Althea," I said. "After all these years, you still take care of me." "I love you, Isaiah," she said. The lie rolled off her tongue like oil. "I just want you to be at peace." Peace. That was what she called it. Death was peace. "I will drink it," I said. "But it is too hot right now. I will let it cool for a minute." She hesitated. She wanted to watch me drink it. She wanted to see the Adam apple bob. She wanted to be sure. "I need to use the bathroom first," I said. I stood up. I took the mug with me. "Where are you going?" she asked sharply. "Just to the bathroom, Althea," I said. "I am an old man. My bladder is weak. I will drink it while I am in there." I walked into the bathroom. I closed the door. I did not lock it. I turned on the faucet. I let the water run loud. I looked at the mug. I looked at the white death inside. I poured the milk into the sink. I watched it swirl down the drain. I rinsed the cup. I left a little bit of foam at the bottom. I turned off the water. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were hard. The grief was gone. Now there was only the plan. I walked back into the bedroom. I put the empty mug on the tray. "That was good," I said. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. "I feel sleepy already." Althea looked at the empty mug. She smiled. A real smile this time. A smile of relief. A smile of victory. "Good," she said. "Lie down, Isaiah. Close your eyes." I lay back on the pillows. I pulled the quilt up to my chin. Althea stood up. She turned off the lamp. The room plunged into darkness. "Sleep well," she whispered. She walked out of the room. She closed the door. I lay in the dark. I waited for 5 minutes. Then I stuck my finger down my throat and gagged. I made wet retching sounds. I coughed. I spat into a tissue. I made it sound like I was struggling, like I was choking on my own bile. Then I went silent. I let my body go limp. I slowed my breathing. I waited for the audience. I knew they were coming. I knew they would come to check the body. They would come to steal the keys. They would come to bury me. But I was not dead. I was holding my breath, and I was waiting for the perfect moment to open my eyes. Althea stood at the foot of the bed like a statue carved from ice. Her eyes were fixed on the mug in my hand. She was waiting for the poison to do its work. She was waiting for the old mechanic to swallow his death so she could cash out. The steam from the warm milk rose up and clouded my vision. It smelled of nutmeg and betrayal. I knew I had to act fast. If I hesitated, she would get suspicious. If I refused, she would force it down my throat or call Hunter to hold me down. I raised the mug to my lips. I let the ceramic touch my skin. It was hot. I tilted it just enough so the liquid touched my tongue, but I did not swallow. I held the toxic brew in my mouth for a split second. Then I let my body convulse. It was a performance worthy of an award. I hacked and coughed. I made my chest heave. I let my hand shake violently. "Oh, Isaiah, be careful," Althea snapped. Her voice was not concerned. It was annoyed. "You are making a mess." I let the mug tip. A splash of the white liquid hit the quilt. It soaked into the fabric immediately, leaving a wet, dark stain. I gasped for air. I dropped my head back against the pillows. I pointed to the stain. "I am sorry," I wheezed. "I spilled it. I need a towel, Althea. It is hot." She rolled her eyes. "You are like a child, Isaiah, a clumsy old child. Do not move. I will get a rag." She turned her back. She walked toward the bathroom. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. Click, click, click. It was the sound of a ticking clock. I had 10 seconds, maybe 15. I sat up. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I looked around the room. I could not dump it on the floor. She would see the puddle. I could not drink it. I looked to my left. On the nightstand, there was a large potted cactus. It was a Christmas cactus that had belonged to my mother. It was dry as a bone. I had not watered it in weeks. I poured the milk into the pot. The dry soil drank it up instantly. It vanished. There was no trace, just a slightly darker shade of dirt. I put the empty mug back on the tray. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. I lay back down. I closed my eyes halfway. Althea came back with a wet washcloth. She scrubbed the spot on the quilt aggressively. She did not look at the mug. She assumed I had finished it. "Did you drink the rest?" she asked. She looked at the empty cup. I nodded weakly. "It was good," I whispered. "I feel dizzy, Althea. The room is spinning." "Good," she said. "That means it is working. Just close your eyes, Isaiah. Go to sleep." She turned off the bedside lamp. She walked to the door. She looked back at me one last time. In the shadows, her face looked distorted. She did not look like the woman I married. She looked like a stranger who had broken into my home. "I will check on you in a bit," she said. She closed the door. I heard the lock click. I was alone in the dark, but I was not sleepy. My adrenaline was spiking. I was wide awake. I lay there and counted the minutes. I had to time this perfectly. I had to wait until the drugs would theoretically take full effect. 30 minutes later, I heard them. They did not knock. The door handle turned. The door swung open. The hallway light flooded the room. It blinded me, but I did not blink. I stared straight ahead at a spot on the wall. I let my jaw go slack. I let my hands fall open at my sides. I slowed my breathing until it was shallow and rhythmic. Hunter walked in first. He was followed by Althea and Dr. Hill. The room smelled of expensive cologne and fear. "Is he out?" Hunter asked. He sounded eager. "He should be," Althea said. I gave him a double dose, enough to knock out an elephant. Dr. Hill walked to the side of the bed. He opened his medical bag. He took out a pen light. He leaned over me. I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. He used his thumb to pull my eyelid up. He shone the bright light directly into my pupil. This was the hardest part. Every instinct in my body screamed to look away, to blink, to flinch. But I forced my eye to stay still. I stared past the light. I stared into the darkness of my own mind. I became a stone. I became a piece of wood. "No reaction," Dr. Hill said. He checked my pulse. It was slow because I was calm. It was the calm of a sniper waiting for the shot. "His heart rate is depressed," Dr. Hill announced. "Respiration is shallow. He is in a deep coma. It appears to be a rapid neurological decline exacerbated by the medication." "Is it enough?" Hunter asked. "Is it enough for the judge?" "It is perfect," Dr. Hill said. "I can certify that he is non-responsive. He is incapable of making decisions. He is incapable of caring for himself. This is grounds for immediate emergency guardianship." Althea let out a breath she had been holding. "Thank God," she said. "I was worried he would fight it." "He cannot fight anything now," Dr. Hill said. "He is a vegetable." I lay there and listened to them call me a vegetable. I listened to them discuss my life as if it were already over. I felt a cold fury rising in my chest, but I kept it locked down. I kept my face blank. "Search him," Hunter said. "We need the keys." I felt hands on my body. They were rough hands. "Hunter." He patted down my pockets. He rolled me over like a sack of flour. He shoved his hand into the front pocket of my pajamas. He found nothing. He checked under the pillow. Nothing. "Where are they?" he growled. "He keeps the safe keys on him. Always." "Check his pants," Althea said. "The ones he was wearing earlier." Hunter walked to the chair where I had draped my work trousers. I heard the jingle of metal. "Got them," he said. He walked back to the bed. He dangled the keys in front of my face. He laughed. "Look at this, Pops," he said. "The keys to the kingdom, and you cannot do a thing about it." He leaned down close to my ear. I could feel the heat of his skin. "I am going to sell it all, Isaiah," he whispered. "The house, the tools, the land. I am going to sell it all, and I am going to spend every dime. And you are going to rot in a room with padded walls." I felt his spit on my cheek. The urge to reach up and crush his throat was overwhelming. My muscles twitched, just a tiny spasm in my right arm. "Did he move?" Althea asked sharply. "No," Hunter said. "He is gone, Althea. The lights are on, but nobody is home." He stood up. He pocketed the keys to my safe, the safe where the deed to the house was kept. He thought he had won. He did not know the safe was empty. I had moved the deed and the patent documents to the bank box 3 days ago. All he would find in that safe was a stack of old warranties and a few silver dollars. But let him think he won. Let him get arrogant. Call the transport, Dr. Hill said. We need to move him to my facility tonight. We cannot risk him waking up here. We need him under controlled supervision. Controlled supervision. That meant a cell. That meant drugs. That meant isolation. I heard Althea make a call. I heard her give the address. They were not calling an ambulance. They were calling a private transport service. A service that did not ask questions. A service that moved bodies for a price. I lay there for another 20 minutes. My body ached from staying still. My throat was dry. I listened to them packing my things. They did not pack clothes. They packed my financial records. They packed my checkbook. They were stripping my life down to the bone. The transport arrived. 2 men walked in. They smelled of tobacco and sweat. They did not speak. They unfolded a gurney next to the bed. 1, 2, 3, lift, one of them grunted. They grabbed me by the shoulders and the ankles. They hoisted me onto the canvas stretcher. They strapped me down. The buckles clicked tight across my chest and my legs. I was a prisoner. They wheeled me out of the bedroom. I stared at the ceiling. I saw the crack in the plaster I had meant to fix last winter. I saw the crown molding I had installed with my own hands. I was leaving my home, the home I had paid for with sweat and blood. They wheeled me down the hall. I passed the pictures on the wall. Pictures of Kenya graduating, pictures of Althea and me on our anniversary, pictures of a family that did not exist anymore. We went through the front door into the night air. It was cold. The wind bit at my face. Hunter and Althea stood on the porch. They watched me go. They did not look sad. They looked relieved. They looked like they were taking out the trash. Call me when he is settled, Althea said to Dr. Hill. I will, Dr. Hill said. Do not worry. He will be well taken care of. They lifted the gurney into the back of a black van. It had no windows. It looked like a hearse. The doors slammed shut. I was in darkness. The engine started. The van began to move. I squeezed my eyes shut. I pictured my house one last time. I pictured the porch where I drank my coffee. I pictured the garage where I built my engines. They thought this was the end. They thought they were sending me away to die. They were wrong. I felt the vibration of the road beneath me. I focused on the rhythm of the tires. I focused on the anger burning in my gut. It was a clean fuel. It burned hot and bright. I am coming back, I whispered into the darkness. I will return. And when I do, I will bring the storm with me. I woke up in a white room. The walls were soft. The floor was soft. The air smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. I was wearing a paper gown that scratched my skin. My clothes were gone. My boots were gone. The checkbook and the keys were gone. I was just a body in a box. I tried the door. It was heavy steel with a small reinforced window. Locked. I was in Dr. Hill private facility. It was a prison for people whose families wanted them to disappear. The door opened with a heavy clank. Dr. Hill walked in. He was flanked by 2 large orderlies who looked more like bouncers than nurses. Hill held a syringe. The needle was long. The liquid inside was yellow. "Good morning, Isaiah," he said. His voice was smooth and professional. "You had a rough night. You were very agitated during transport. We need to calm you down." "I am calm," I said. My voice was raspy. "I am not crazy, Hill. You know it." "Paranoia," Dr. Hill said to the orderlies. "Classic symptom. He believes everyone is against him. Hold him." The 2 men grabbed my arms. Their grip was iron. They pinned me to the soft wall. I did not fight. If I fought, they would say I was violent. I let my muscles go loose. I let them hold me. Dr. Hill wiped my arm with an alcohol swab. It was cold. "This will help you rest," he said. "It is a cocktail of haloperidol and lorazepam. It will clear the voices." "There are no voices," I said, "only yours." He jammed the needle into my deltoid. I felt the burn of the liquid entering my muscle. It was a fire spreading through my veins. "Give it 5 minutes," he told the men. "He will be out like a light." They let me go. They walked out. The heavy door slammed shut. The lock clicked. I had 5 minutes, maybe less. I knew about these drugs. Althea used to talk about them. They shut down the brain. They turn you into a zombie. If that chemical hit my bloodstream fully, I would be unable to speak or think for days. I would miss my chance. I ran to the corner of the room. There was no toilet, just a drain in the floor. I shoved my fingers down my throat. I pushed past the gag reflex. I thought about Hunter laughing. I thought about Althea poisoning my milk. I used the anger to trigger the spasm. My stomach contracted. I heaved. I retched violently. I emptied my stomach onto the drain. I forced myself to keep going until there was nothing left but bile. It was not a perfect solution. Some of the drug had already entered my blood. I felt the edges of my vision blur. I felt my knees get heavy. But I fought it. I paced the room. I slapped my own face. I did math problems in my head. 12 times 12 is 144. The square root of 81 is 9. I kept my mind moving. I would not let the fog settle. I would not let them win. 10 miles away in the county courthouse, Althea was putting on the performance of her life. She stood before Judge Vance wearing a modest black dress. She had no jewelry. She looked small and frail. She clutched a handkerchief to her chest. "Your Honor," she sobbed. "It breaks my heart to be here. I love my husband. We have been married 40 years, but he is not the man I married anymore." Judge Vance looked over his glasses. He was a busy man. He saw hundreds of these cases. He saw a weeping wife and a concerned family. "Tell me about the incident, Mrs. Washington," he said. "He tried to burn the house down," Althea whispered. She wiped a tear. He turned on the gas. He locked the door. "If I had not smelled it, we would all be dead. He thinks the house is cold. He keeps saying he wants to warm it up." Hunter stepped forward. He was wearing a suit. He looked respectful. He held up a tablet. "We have video, Your Honor," he said. "We installed cameras for his safety because he wanders. This is from yesterday morning." He played the video. It was grainy footage of me walking through the hallway. It showed me standing by the stove. It was edited. It was cut to make it look like I was turning dials randomly. It did not show the part where I fixed the loose hinge on the cabinet. It just showed a confused old man fiddling with gas knobs. The judge frowned. He watched the video. He saw what they wanted him to see. Danger. "This is disturbing," Judge Vance said. "We just want to protect him," Hunter said. His voice was full of fake concern. "We found a facility that can care for him. Dr. Hill is an expert. But we need the authority to handle his affairs. We need to pay for his treatment. The insurance does not cover everything. We need to sell the house to fund his care." The judge nodded. It seemed logical. It seemed necessary. "I am inclined to grant the emergency guardianship," Judge Vance said. He picked up his gavel. "The evidence is clear. Mr. Washington is a danger to himself and others. I will sign the order granting Althea Washington full control over his assets and medical decisions." Althea let out a breath. She smiled through her tears. She looked at Hunter. They had done it. They had won. The gavel started to come down. "Objection." The word rang out from the back of the courtroom. It was sharp and cold like a whip crack. The gavel hovered in the air. Everyone turned. Ophelia Price walked down the center aisle. She was not walking fast. She was gliding. Her heels clicked on the wood floor with a rhythm that commanded attention. She carried a thin leather briefcase. She did not look at Althea. She looked at the judge. "Who are you?" Judge Vance asked. "I am Ophelia Price," she said. "I represent Isaiah Washington." Althea stood up. "He is incompetent," she shouted. "He cannot hire a lawyer. He does not know what day it is." "He hired me 3 days ago," Ophelia said calmly, "when he was fully competent. And I have a durable power of attorney that supersedes this hearing." Hunter stepped in front of Althea. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Look at the video. The man is senile. We are trying to save him." Judge Vance looked at Ophelia. "Do you have evidence to refute the medical report from Dr. Hill?" he asked. Ophelia placed her briefcase on the table. She opened it. She did not take out a video. She did not take out a medical report. "I do not need to refute the report, Your Honor," she said. "My client is currently being held against his will in a private facility without due process. We will address that in criminal court. But for today, for this hearing regarding the guardianship of the estate, we have a different proposition." She turned to Althea and Hunter. She smiled. It was a smile that should have terrified them. "My client is willing to concede the guardianship of the marital home," she said. Althea blinked. "What?" You heard me, Ophelia said. Mr. Washington agrees that the house is a burden. He agrees that Althea should have full control over the property located at 124 Maple Street. He is willing to sign over his half of the deed immediately. He wants you to have it. Hunter's eyes went wide. He looked at Althea. They could not believe it. They thought they would have to fight for months. They thought I would cling to that house until I died. He agrees, Althea asked. Yes, Ophelia said. He wants you to be secure. He wants you to have the asset. She pulled a document from her briefcase. It was a single page. This is a stipulated order, she said. It grants Althea Washington full guardianship of the real estate property. It allows her to sell, transfer, or mortgage the home immediately. No waiting period. Hunter grabbed the paper. His hands were shaking. This was it. This was the lifeline. He could take this to the loan shark. He could show them the asset. He could save his life. There is just one standard clause, Ophelia said casually. Since Mr. Washington is surrendering his interest in the property, the guardian must assume full liability for the asset. It just means you take the house as is. Hunter did not listen. He heard take the house. He saw the dollar signs. $800,000. Where do we sign, he asked. You need to read it, Judge Vance warned. You should have counsel review it. We do not need counsel, Althea said quickly. She was greedy. She saw the finish line. We know the house. We have lived there for 40 years. We accept the terms. She grabbed the pen. She signed her name with a flourish. Hunter signed as a witness. Ophelia took the paper back. She checked the signatures. Thank you, she said. Her voice was ice. Judge Vance looked confused, but he stamped the order. So ordered, he said. Guardianship of the real estate is transferred. Althea hugged Hunter. We did it, she whispered. We got the house. Ophelia snapped her briefcase shut. She looked at them. She looked at the two people celebrating their theft. Congratulations, she said. You now own the house, and everything attached to it. She turned and walked out of the courtroom. She did not look back. Back in the cell, I was doing push-ups. My arms were shaking. The drugs were fighting me. My head felt heavy, but I kept moving. 41, 42. I heard a noise outside, not the heavy clank of the door. A siren. It was distant at first, then closer. I stopped. I listened. It was not an ambulance. It was the police. Ophelia had left the courthouse and made a call. She had called the state police. She had reported a kidnapping. She had shown them the video from my button camera, the video of Althea poisoning the milk, the video of Hunter stealing the keys. The cavalry was coming. But Althea and Hunter did not know that yet. They were driving to the house. They were driving to their victory. They were driving to a house that I had mortgaged to the hilt 3 days ago to pay for the lawsuit against the car company. A house that had a lien on it for $500,000. A house that Ophelia had just legally tied to their names along with the debt. They thought they had signed a deed. They had signed a confession of debt. I stood up. I wiped the sweat from my face. The drugs were fading. My mind was sharp. I walked to the door. I waited for the sound of boots. The game was over. Checkmate. The steel door of my cell shuddered. It was a loud metallic boom that echoed in the small room. I stood back against the padded wall. I waited. The door boomed again. Then it flew open. It did not swing on hinges. It was forced. 2 state troopers in tactical gear filled the doorway. They had weapons drawn. They looked ready for a war. Behind them stood Ophelia Price. She was holding a piece of paper high in the air like a sword. Dr. Hill was screaming in the hallway. You cannot do this, he yelled. This is a private facility. He is a danger to the public. Ophelia did not look at him. She looked at me. Get him out, she said to the troopers. One of the officers stepped forward. Mr. Washington, he said, you are coming with us. I walked out of the cell. I was wearing the paper gown. I was barefoot. I walked past Dr. Hill. He was being held against the wall by another officer. His face was pale. He saw me. He saw the fire in my eyes. He looked away. We walked out into the sunlight. It burned my eyes. The air smelled of gasoline and freedom. Ophelia handed me a bag. Here are your clothes, Isaiah, she said, and your boots. I put them on in the back of her car. I tied the laces tight. I felt the strength returning to my legs. We drove away. We left the prison behind. You are free, Isaiah, Ophelia said. The judge saw the video. He signed the order immediately. He issued a warrant for Hill's arrest for kidnapping and medical malpractice. Althea and Hunter will be next. No, I said. Not yet. Ophelia looked at me in the rearview mirror. What do you mean? Do not arrest them yet, I said. Do not tell them I am out. Let them think I am still locked up. Let them think they won. Why? She asked. Because next week is my 40th wedding anniversary, I said. Althea loves parties. She loves to be the center of attention. She will throw a party. She will use it to show the neighborhood that she is the victim. She will use it to cement her control. I want to be there, I said. Ophelia smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. What do you need? She asked. I need a week, I said. I need a hotel. I need a tailor. And I need the best car money can rent. I spent the next 6 days at the Four Seasons. I paid cash. I ate steak every night to build my strength. I slept in a bed with silk sheets. I stood in front of a mirror for hours. I practiced my walk. I practiced my smile. I was not the mechanic anymore. The mechanic was dead. I was the millionaire. I went to a tailor on Fifth Avenue. I bought a suit. It was not off the rack. It was Italian wool, midnight blue. It fit me like a second skin. I bought shoes made of leather so soft it felt like butter. I bought a gold watch, real gold, not a toy. I was ready. On Saturday evening, I sat in the back of a Rolls-Royce Phantom. The seats were cream leather. The windows were tinted. The driver was a man named James. He did not ask questions. He just drove. We turned onto my street. It was lined with cars. Althea had invited everyone. She had invited the neighbors she gossiped about. She had invited the church choir. She had invited the people Hunter owed money to. The house was lit up like a Christmas tree. There were white lights strung in the oak tree. There was music playing, jazz, soft and smooth. It was the music I used to play for her when we were young. She was using our memories as a backdrop for her treachery. Pull up to the front, I said to James. Block the driveway. The car glided forward. It was silent. It was a shark moving through water. I looked out the window. I saw them. The party was in full swing in the front yard. Tables were set up on the grass. People were drinking champagne. Althea was standing on the porch. She was wearing a white dress. She looked like a bride. She was holding a glass. She was laughing. She looked happy. She looked relieved. She thought her husband was rotting in a padded room 10 miles away. Hunter was standing near the garage. He was holding court. He had a group of men around him. He was pointing at the house. He was making gestures with his hands. He was showing them the roof line. He was selling it. He was selling my life while I was still breathing. James stopped the car. The massive grille of the Rolls-Royce shone under the streetlights. The Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament gleamed. The music stopped. The chatter died down. People turned. They stared at the car. It did not belong in this neighborhood. It was a spaceship. "Who is that?" someone whispered. "Maybe it is a buyer," Hunter shouted. He looked excited. He thought his luck had finally turned. He thought a rich investor had arrived to hand him cash. James got out. He walked around the car. He opened the rear door. I took a breath. I adjusted my cuffs. I stepped out. My shoe hit the pavement. It was a solid sound. I stood up to my full height. I buttoned my jacket. I walked into the light. The silence was absolute. You could hear a pin drop on the grass. Althea dropped her glass. It hit the porch steps. It shattered. Red wine splashed onto her white dress. It looked like a gunshot wound. Hunter's mouth fell open. He took a step back. He tripped over a garden gnome. He stumbled. I did not look at the ground. I did not hunch my shoulders. I walked with the stride of a king returning to his castle. I walked past the neighbors. They parted like the Red Sea. They looked at my suit. They looked at my face. They did not see the grease monkey. They saw a stranger. I walked up the steps to the porch. I stood in front of Althea. She was trembling. Her face was gray. Her eyes were wide with terror. She looked like she was seeing a ghost. "Hello, my love," I said. My voice was deep and steady. It carried across the silent yard. "Happy anniversary." Hunter recovered from his stumble over the garden gnome. His face turned a deep, violent shade of crimson that clashed with his expensive suit. The shock of seeing me standing there in a tailored Italian suit instead of a hospital gown wore off quickly. It was replaced by panic. He realized his narrative was crumbling. He realized the ghost he had tried to bury was standing on his front porch. He charged up the stairs. He looked like a mad dog. He bared his teeth. He shouted at me, "What the hell are you doing here, Pops? Did you break out? You are sick. You belong in a cage." He reached out to grab the lapels of my new jacket. He wanted to drag me down. He wanted to humiliate me one last time in front of his friends. He never touched me. James moved with the speed of a striking cobra. One moment he was standing by the car door. The next he was between me and Hunter. He did not punch him. He did not kick him. He simply extended one massive arm and swatted Hunter aside. It was effortless. It looked like he was brushing away a fly. Hunter flew backward off the porch. He landed hard on the grass. He rolled over. He gasped for air. His suit was stained with dirt. His dignity was gone. The crowd gasped. A few people stepped back. They looked at James. They looked at the gun bulge under his jacket. They realized this was not a social call. This was a hostile takeover. I did not look at Hunter. He was beneath me. I looked at the crowd. I saw the neighbors who had whispered about my dementia. I saw the pastor who had prayed for my recovery. I saw the loan shark standing in the back wearing ill-fitting suits. They were watching Hunter with very interested eyes. I walked over to the DJ booth. The young man behind the turntable looked terrified. He backed away. I picked up the microphone. It felt heavy and solid in my hand. It was a tool, and I knew how to use tools. How? I tapped the microphone. Thump, thump. The sound echoed through the yard. "Welcome, everyone," I said. My voice was calm. It was deep. It filled the space. "Thank you for coming to my house. Thank you for celebrating with my wife." I looked at Althea. She was still frozen. She was clutching her chest. Her eyes were darting around looking for an escape. "You all think you are here for an anniversary," I said. "You think you are here to celebrate 40 years of marriage. But you are wrong." I paused. I let the silence stretch. I let the tension build until it was almost unbearable. "You are here to celebrate a rebirth," I said. "Today is the day Isaiah Washington woke up." Hunter scrambled to his feet on the lawn. He was shouting, "Do not listen to him. He is crazy. The drugs have fried his brain. Someone call the police. Call Dr. Hill." I smiled at him. It was a cold smile. "We do not need Dr. Hill," I said. "We have something better. We have the truth." I nodded to James. He pulled a small remote control from his pocket. He pointed it at the large projection screen set up near the oak tree. It was supposed to show a slideshow of our happy marriage. It was supposed to show pictures of vacations and birthdays. It flickered to life, but there were no pictures of beaches. There were no pictures of cakes. The video was grainy. It was black and white. It was shot from a low angle, from under a table. The audio boomed through the high-quality speakers. It was crisp. It was clear. "Forget dinner," Hunter screamed on the screen. "We are out of time. I got a call an hour ago. They said if I do not have the first installment by Wednesday, they are going to start mailing pieces of me to you." The crowd murmured. They looked at the real Hunter standing on the grass. He went pale. He stopped shouting. The video cut to Althea. "Murder," she said on the screen. "You are talking about murder. I am talking about survival," the video Hunter snapped. "It is him or me, Althea. Choose." "Okay, the video," Althea said. Her voice was flat. "Okay." The crowd gasped. A woman covered her mouth. The pastor made the sign of the cross. The video cut again. It showed Althea in the bedroom. It showed her holding the mug. It showed her standing over me while I pretended to sleep. It showed her wiping the spilled poison from the quilt. "Make sure he does not wake up the video," Hunter said. The screen went black. The silence in the yard was heavy. It was suffocating. Everyone looked at Althea, the loving wife, the grieving caretaker. She was exposed. She was naked in her treachery. Then the video changed. It showed Kenya, my daughter. She was sitting at the kitchen table. She was counting money, my money. "He is such a burden," she said on the screen. "I hate visiting him. He smells like oil. I just want the money so I can leave this dump. I hope he dies soon so we can stop pretending." Kenya was standing near the buffet table. She dropped her plate. It shattered. She looked at her friends. They were looking at her with disgust. She looked at me. She started to cry. But they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of shame. I looked at the back of the crowd. The men in the cheap suits were moving. They were moving toward Hunter. They had heard the part about the debt. They knew the money was gone. They knew their investment was at risk. Hunter saw them too. He started to back away. He looked like a trapped animal. I raised the microphone again. "You see," I said. My family loves me very much. They love me so much they wanted to send me to a special place where I would never wake up. Althea found her voice. It was a shrill scream. "That is fake," she yelled. "It is AI. He made it up. He is trying to frame us." I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. I pulled out a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly. "Is this fake, Althea?" I asked. I held it up. It was a bank statement. It was printed on thick bond paper. It had the logo of the First National Bank. "This is the balance of the Blind Mechanic Trust," I said. I read the number aloud. $5,300,000. The number hung in the air. 5 million. Althea stopped screaming. Her eyes locked onto the paper. Her pupils dilated. She did the math instantly. 5 million. That was the life she wanted. That was the cruises. That was the jewelry. That was the freedom. She forgot the video. She forgot the poison. She forgot the crowd. Greed took over. It was a reflex. "Oh, Isaiah," she said. Her voice changed. It became sweet. It became the voice she used when she wanted something. "You won. You won the lawsuit. I knew you would. I always told you that you were a genius." She took a step toward the porch. She held out her hands. "Honey," she said, "we are rich. We can finally be happy. Forget all this silliness. We are a team." Hunter stopped backing away. He looked at the paper. He licked his lips. 5 million. That would pay his debts. That would save his life. "Pops," he said. He tried to smile. It looked like a rictus of pain. "Pops, you did it. I always believed in you. I was just trying to protect you." I looked at them. They were pathetic. They would sell their souls for a piece of paper. I laughed. It was a dry, hard sound. "This money is real," I said. I folded the paper. I put it back in my pocket. "But it is not yours. It belongs to the trust, and I am the only beneficiary." Althea stopped. Her smile faltered. "But we are married," she said. "What is yours is mine." "Not anymore," I said. I pulled out another document. This one was a court order. "I filed for divorce 3 days ago," I said. "On the grounds of attempted murder and fraud, the judge granted an emergency freeze on all marital assets pending the investigation. You get nothing, Althea. Not a dime." Her face crumpled. She looked old. She looked broken. "But you have something else," I said. I picked up a third document from the DJ table. It was thick. It had a blue cover. "Congratulations, Hunter," I said. "Congratulations, Althea. You won. You got what you wanted." I threw the document at them. It fluttered through the air. It landed on the grass at Hunter's feet. "You wanted guardianship of the house," I said. "You fought for it in court yesterday. You signed the papers without reading them. You wanted the asset." Hunter picked up the document. He looked at it. He looked confused. "Well, you got it," I said. "You are the legal guardians of the property at 124 Maple Street. You own it. You control it." Althea looked confused. "Why are you smiling?" she asked. "We have the house. We can sell it. It is worth $800,000. I leaned into the microphone. "I took out a mortgage on the house 10 years ago, Althea," I said, "to pay for the lawyers, to pay for the patent fight. I leveraged every brick. I leveraged every blade of grass." I paused. "The house has a lien on it," I said, "for $500,000. The balloon payment was due yesterday. I did not pay it." Hunter dropped the paper. His hands were shaking. "Since you are the legal guardians," I said, "since you signed that order accepting full liability for the estate, you owe the bank $500,000. Today." I smiled. "If you do not pay it, they will foreclose next week, and you will still owe the balance." The crowd erupted. They laughed. They cheered. They saw the trap snap shut. Althea fell to her knees. She screamed. It was a sound of pure agony. Not for me. For the money. She had lost the 5 million. She had lost the house. She had inherited a debt that would bury her. Hunter looked at the loan sharks. They were walking toward him. They did not look happy. They knew he had no house to sell. They knew he had no money coming. He looked at me. His eyes were begging. "Pops," he whispered, "please." I turned off the microphone. I dropped it on the table. "Do not call me Pops," I said. I turned my back on them. I walked toward the Rolls-Royce. James opened the door. I did not look back at the ruin of my family. I did not look back at the house I had built. It was just wood and brick. It belonged to them now, and they were welcome to it. The sirens cut through the night air like a knife. They were loud and close. The guests covered their ears. The blue and red lights washed over the front yard, turning the white tablecloths into strobe lights. It was not one car. It was a fleet. Ophelia had timed this perfectly. She had given the police the evidence of the kidnapping and the poisoning an hour ago. She told them exactly where to find the perpetrators. They swarmed the driveway. Officers in tactical vests poured out of the vehicles. They moved with precision. They ignored the loan shark standing in the shadows. They ignored the shocked neighbors. They went straight for the woman in the white dress and the man trying to hide behind the oak tree. Dr. Hill had been lurking near the side gate, hoping to slip away during the confusion. 2 officers tackled him before he could take 3 steps. I saw his face pressed into the dirt of my flower bed, the dirt I had tilled every spring. He was shouting about his medical license. He was shouting that he was a victim of circumstance. An officer pulled his arms back and clicked the handcuffs into place. The sound was crisp. It cut through the wailing of the sirens. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, and medical malpractice," the officer recited. Dr. Hill spat dirt. He looked at me. I did not look away. I watched him being dragged toward a squad car. He was no longer a doctor. He was just a criminal in a dirty suit. Althea stood on the porch. She was frozen. An officer walked up the steps. He was young, but his face was hard. He held up a warrant. "Althea Washington," he said, "you are under arrest for attempted murder and unlawful imprisonment." Althea looked at the handcuffs. She looked at the guests. She saw the judgment in their eyes. She saw her reputation crumbling into dust. She panicked. The mask of the grieving wife fell away completely. The mask of the dignified matriarch shattered. She pointed a trembling finger at Hunter, who was cowering near the garage. "It was him," she screamed. Her voice was shrill and ugly. "It was all his idea. He forced me to do it. He said he would kill me if I did not help him. He owes money to bad people. I am a victim here." The crowd gasped. The betrayal was absolute. The alliance of greed had dissolved the moment the steel bracelets came out. Althea was throwing her partner to the wolves to save her own skin. Hunter looked at her with wide eyes. "You lying witch," he shouted. "You mixed the poison. You stole the keys. You wanted the house just as much as I did." The officer did not care about their arguments. He spun Althea around. He cuffed her hands behind her back. She struggled. She kicked. She screamed that she was an old woman. She screamed that she was frail. But the video on the screen behind her was still frozen on the image of her pouring powder into my milk. The evidence was staring down at her. She was dragged down the steps she had once swept with pride. She was shoved into the back of a police cruiser. She looked at me through the window. She mouthed the word "please." I turned my back on her. I had spent 40 years pleasing her. I was done. Hunter saw Althea go down. He saw the police focused on securing the doctor and his mother-in-law. He saw an opening. He thought he could run. He sprinted toward the back gate that led to the alley. It was a desperate move. He was fast, but he was panicked. He scrambled over the rose bushes, tearing his expensive suit. He made it to the gate. He fumbled with the latch. He pushed it open. He did not get far. The alley was not empty. The men in the ill-fitting suits were waiting. They had anticipated his move. They knew rats always run for the darkest hole. I watched from the porch. The police saw him run. They started to move toward him. But the captain held up a hand. He paused. He adjusted his belt. He looked at his watch. He gave the universe 10 seconds of blind justice. Hunter ran straight into the chest of the largest loan shark. The man did not move. He grabbed Hunter by the lapels. He lifted him off the ground. Hunter kicked and flailed. He screamed for the police. "Help me!" he shrieked. "Arrest me! Please arrest me!" The shark did not speak. He threw Hunter against the brick wall of the garage. The sound of the impact was sickening. It was a wet thud. Hunter slid down the wall. He tried to crawl away. The man stepped forward. He lifted his heavy boot. He did not aim for the head. He aimed for the leg. He stomped down hard on Hunter's shin. The snap was loud. It sounded like a dry branch breaking in a winter forest. Hunter howled. It was a high-pitched sound of pure agony. He curled into a ball, clutching his leg. He rolled in the dirt. He was crying. He was begging. The loan shark leaned down. He whispered something in Hunter's ear. I did not hear it, but I knew what it was. It was a promise. It was a reminder that a broken leg was just a down payment. The debt was still owed. And now Hunter had no house to sell, no inheritance to claim. The police captain lowered his hand. "Okay," he said. "Go get him." The officers jogged over to the alley. The loan sharks stepped back. They raised their hands. They looked innocent. "We were just performing a citizen's arrest, officer," one of them said. He tried to flee. He fell. The police did not argue. They picked Hunter up. He screamed in pain as they moved his broken leg. They did not handle him gently. They dragged him to the waiting ambulance. He was sobbing. He was broken in body and spirit. He looked at me as they loaded him onto the stretcher. His eyes were glazed with pain. He looked like a child who had touched a hot stove after being told not to. I felt nothing. No joy, no sorrow, just the cold satisfaction of a balanced equation. He had tried to break my mind. Now his leg was broken. It was fair. The yard was clearing out. The guests were fleeing the scene of the disaster. They did not want to be associated with a criminal family. They drove away in their luxury cars, leaving tire marks on the lawn. The police cars drove off with lights flashing, carrying my past away. I stood alone on the porch. The party decorations were still up. The cake was uncut. The music had stopped. I felt a tug on my sleeve. I looked down. Kenya was kneeling on the grass at my feet. Her dress was ruined. Her makeup was streaked with tears. She looked small. She looked like the little girl who used to wait for me to come home from the shop. But her eyes were not innocent. They were terrified. "Daddy," she sobbed. "Oh, Daddy, I am so sorry. I did not know. I swear I did not know they were going to hurt you." I looked at her. I looked at the daughter I had starved for. I looked at the woman who had laughed at me while I wore a bib. "You knew Kenya," I said. My voice was tired. "You knew everything. I saw the video. I heard you say you hoped I would die soon." She grabbed my hand. She tried to kiss it. I pulled it away. I was confused, she cried. "Hunter told me it was for the best. He said you were suffering. He manipulated me, Daddy. I am a victim too. He ruined our credit. He spent all our money. I have nothing. They are going to take my car. They are going to take my clothes. I have nowhere to go." She looked up at me. Her eyes were pleading. "Help me, Daddy," she begged. "Please, you have the money now. You have millions. You can fix this. You can pay off Hunter's debts. You can buy us a new house. We can start over. Just you and me. I will take care of you. I promise." I looked at the house behind me. It was dark now. The lights had been turned off. It was just a shell. "You want me to save you?" I asked. "Yes," she nodded eagerly. "Yes, Daddy, save me." I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a $20 bill. It was crumpled. It was greasy. It was the only cash I had carried before I got the check. I dropped the bill on the grass in front of her. "Here," I said. She looked at the money. She looked at me. She looked confused. "What is this?" she asked. "It is cab fare," I said. "Or maybe it is lunch. It is all you are getting from me." "Daddy, you cannot be serious," she wailed. "I am your daughter." "No," I said. "My daughter was a kind girl who loved her father. My daughter would never have let her husband mock me. My daughter died a long time ago, Kenya. You are just a stranger who shares her face." I stepped around her. I walked down the steps. "But where will I go?" she screamed. "What will I do?" I stopped. I turned back one last time. "You will do what I did," I said. "You will get a job. You will work. You will struggle. And maybe if you are lucky, you will learn what it feels like to earn your own way. I have rescued you 1,000 times, Kenya. I paid for your mistakes. I paid for your vanity. I shielded you from the world. And in return, you tried to bury me." I took a deep breath. The night air filled my lungs. "This time, you have to save yourself," I said. "By learning how to be a human being." I turned away. I walked toward the Rolls-Royce. James held the door open. I slid into the leather seat. I did not look back at the woman kneeling in the dirt. I did not look back at the flashing lights in the distance. "Drive, James," I said. "Where to, sir?" he asked. "Forward," I said. "Just drive forward." The car pulled away. I watched the house disappear in the rearview mirror. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just a speck of light in the darkness. Then we turned a corner, and it was gone. I sat in the silence of the car. I touched the gold watch on my wrist. It ticked steadily. Time was moving. My life was starting over. I was 70 years old. I was alone. But but I was free, and for the first time in a long time, I was at peace. It has been 30 days since the red and blue lights faded from my street. 30 days since the silence returned. But it is a different kind of silence now. It is the silence of a ledger being balanced. I drove past the county jail yesterday. It is a gray concrete building surrounded by razor wire. Althea is inside. She is wearing an orange jumpsuit that clashes with her complexion. She sleeps on a steel cot with a thin mattress. There are no silk sheets. There is no wine. There is only the cold, hard reality of a cell. Her lawyer says she cries every day. She claims she was coerced. She claims she is a victim. But the judge watched the video. The judge saw her pour the powder. She was denied bail. She sits there and she waits for a trial that will send her away for 20 years. She wanted to live in a place where someone else made her meals and did her laundry. She got her wish. Hunter is not in jail yet. He is in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. He paid cash for a week. He cannot walk. His leg is in a cast that goes up to his hip. He sits in a dark room with the curtains drawn. He jumps every time a car door slams outside. He knows the men in the ill-fitting suits are still out there. They know where he is. They are just letting him heal a little. They want him to be able to work so he can pay them back. He will spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. He will never wear a suit again. He will never drive a Porsche. He is a ghost haunting his own life. And Kenya, my daughter. I went to a diner downtown last Tuesday. It was late. I sat in the back. I saw a waitress moving between the tables. She looked tired. Her feet dragged. She was wearing a uniform that was too big for her. She spilled coffee on a customer. The man yelled at her, but he called her clumsy. She did not argue. She did not roll her eyes. She apologized. She wiped the table. She looked like she was about to cry. It was Kenya. She works the graveyard shift. She lives in a studio apartment above a laundromat. She takes the bus. She is learning what it means to stand on her own feet. I watched her for an hour. I did not say hello. I did not leave a tip. I paid my bill, and I walked away. She needs this. She needs to feel the weight of the tray. She needs to know that money is heavy. It is the only way she will ever become a person worth knowing. The house on Maple Street is gone. Not physically. The structure is still there. But it is dead. The bank foreclosed on it 3 days after the party. The lien I placed on it swallowed every cent of equity. Althea and Hunter defaulted immediately. The bank sent a crew to board up the windows. They put a padlock on the door. They put a sign on the lawn. Foreclosure, auction. The neighbors walk by and shake their heads. They talk about the tragedy. They do not know it was a liberation. I do not miss it. I do not miss the crown molding or the oak floors. It was a museum of lies. I let the bank take it. It was the price of my freedom. I erased the chalkboard. I washed it clean. I did not buy a mansion. I did not buy a yacht. I did not move to an island. I stayed right here in the city that made me. I took a drive down to the industrial district. It is a place of brick factories and smokestacks. It is a place most people avoid. I found a building. It was an old textile mill. It had been abandoned for 10 years. The windows were broken. The roof leaked. The floor was covered in debris. But the bones were good. The steel beams were straight. It had soul. I bought it. I paid cash. I hired a crew. But I did not hire Hunter's friends. I hired men from the neighborhood, men who needed a second chance. We worked side by side. I put on my coveralls. I picked up a hammer. I sweated. I bled. We replaced the roof. We poured new concrete. We installed lights that turned the night into day. I filled the space with machines. I bought lathes. I bought milling machines. I bought the most advanced diagnostic computers money could buy. I bought engines, V8s, diesels, electric motors. I lined them up like soldiers on parade. I put a sign over the door. It is simple metal letters welded to an iron arch. The Washington Institute of Mechanics. It is not a business. It is a school. I went to the high schools in the poorest districts. I talked to the counselors. I asked for the kids who were failing. The kids who sat in the back of the class drawing in notebooks. The kids who had grease under their fingernails and anger in their eyes. I asked for the ones the system had thrown away. The ones they called obsolete. I found them. There are 50 of them now. Boys and girls, black and white and brown. They come here after school. They come here on weekends. I teach them. I do not teach them how to pass a test. I teach them how to feel the vibration of an engine. I teach them how to listen to the rhythm of a piston. I teach them that a machine does not lie. If you treat it right, it runs. If you neglect it, it breaks. There is no politics in an engine block. There is only truth. I watch them. I see a boy named Marcus holding a torque wrench for the first time. He treats it like a holy relic. I see a girl named Sarah welding a seam with a steady hand. I see the pride in their eyes when an engine roars to life for the first time. It is a sound better than any symphony. I pay them. I give them a stipend so they do not have to sell drugs on the corner. I give them a meal so they do not have to go home hungry. I give them a future. They look at me with respect, not because I have $5 million. They do not know about the money. They respect me because I can take a transmission apart and put it back together blindfolded. They respect me because I have dirt on my hands. They respect me because I am one of them. I am building an army of mechanics, an army of creators. They will go out into the world and they will fix things. They will build things. They will know that their worth is not in what they own, but in what they can do. I sat in my office. It is a glass box suspended above the workshop floor. I can see everything from here. I can see the sparks flying from the welding stations. I can hear the whine of the drills. I can smell the oil and the hot metal. It is the perfume of industry. I sipped my black coffee. It was strong and bitter, just the way I like it. There was a knock on the door. I turned. Ophelia Price stood there. She was wearing a red suit today. She looked like victory. She was holding a manila envelope. "Hello, Isaiah," she said. She walked in and sat down. She looked out at the workshop. She watched the kids working below. "This is impressive," she said. "You did good." "I am just getting started," I said. She placed the envelope on my desk. She slid it toward me. "It is done," she said. "The divorce is final. The judge granted everything. Althea contested it from jail, but she had no ground to stand on. The fraud invalidated the prenup. The attempted murder invalidated her claim to marital assets. You are a single man, Isaiah." I looked at the envelope. Inside was a piece of paper that severed 40 years of my life. It cut the cord to the woman who tried to kill me. It cut the cord to the lies. "Thank you, Ophelia," I said. "I mean it. You saved my life. You saved your own life, Isaiah," she said. "I just filed the paperwork." She stood up. She walked to the door. She paused. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "You have the money. You have the freedom. You could go anywhere." I looked down at the workshop. I saw Marcus high-fiving Sarah because they fixed a carburetor. I saw the future. "I am exactly where I want to be," I said. Ophelia smiled. She closed the door. I opened the envelope. I took out the decree. I picked up a pen. It was a heavy silver pen. I signed my name on the line. Isaiah Washington. The ink was black and permanent. I put the pen down. I leaned back in my chair. I thought about Althea in her cell. I thought about Hunter in his motel. I thought about Kenya in the diner. I did not feel hate. I did not feel pity. I felt nothing. They were just broken parts that I had discarded. I had replaced them with something that worked. I looked at my hands. They were still rough. They were still stained with oil. They were the hands of a mechanic. I had $5 million in the bank. I had a legacy growing on the floor below me. I had my life back. I stood up. I walked out of the office. I walked down the metal stairs to the workshop floor. Marcus looked up. "Hey, Mr. Washington," he shouted over the noise of a drill. "This engine is humming. Come listen." I walked over to him. I leaned in. I listened to the steady rhythmic beat of the pistons. It was a strong sound. It was a powerful sound. "It sounds perfect, Marcus," I said. "Good job." He beamed. I picked up a wrench. I tightened a bolt. I felt the metal bite. I was home. I am Isaiah Washington. I am a mechanic, and I fixed my life. Hit like and subscribe if you believe it is never too late to start over. Tell me in the comments what you would build if you had a second chance. Until next time, keep your hands dirty and your head high. I learned that true worth is never found in a bank account or the conditional approval of those who claim to love you. It is found in what you build with your own hands and the integrity you carry in your heart. For decades, I allowed my family to treat me as obsolete, mistaking my silence for weakness and my sacrifice for duty. But I realized that you cannot fix a broken person who refuses to be repaired. You can only save yourself. It is never too late to strip down the engine of your life and rebuild it stronger. Dignity is the only currency that truly matters. Hit like and subscribe if you believe respect must be earned, not demanded, and tell me in the comments, what is the one dream you would rebuild if you had a second chance today?